Hello and welcome to the Fiction Wizard, your home for amazing stories. Today's story is What If Ginny Fell in Love with Draco? The Forbidden Romance. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe if you haven't already. We post new stories regularly. Let's get started. Chapter 1, Enemies by Blood. The castle walls seemed to close in a little more each day. Ginny Weasley kept her head down as she hurried through the corridor, auburn hair falling forward to shield her face from the watchful eyes of the Carrows. 6 years at Hogwarts, and she'd never felt like a prisoner until now. Late again, Weasley? Alecto Carrow voice slithered through the air. 5 points from Gryffindor. Ginny bit her tongue, literally. The metallic taste of blood kept her from saying something that would cost far more than house points. This wasn't the Hogwarts she knew. Dumbledore was dead. Harry, Ron, and Hermione were gone, off fighting you-know-who while the rest of them were trapped in this nightmare. She slipped into the potions classroom seconds before Slughorn closed the door. The only empty seat was next to a familiar shock of platinum blonde hair. Draco Malfoy. Fantastic. Draco didn't look up as she dropped her bag and slid onto the stool beside him. His face was gaunt, skin almost translucent under the dungeon lights. He'd changed since last year, less swagger, more shadow. Today, we'll be brewing Dreamless Sleep Potion, Professor Slughorn announced, his usual joviality diminished to a dull echo of itself. The hospital wing needs restocking. Many students seem to be having trouble sleeping these days. No kidding, Ginny thought. The screams from detention sessions echoed through the castle at night. Partner with the person beside you, Slughorn continued. Instructions are on page 394. Ginny reluctantly turned to Draco. I'll get the ingredients if you set up the cauldron. He nodded without meeting her eyes. As Ginny gathered valerian root and powdered moonstone from the supply cabinet, she watched Draco from across the room. His hands trembled slightly as he measured water into the cauldron. The dark mark peeked from beneath his left sleeve when it rode up his arm. Her stomach clenched at the sight. Death Eater. His father was probably buddies with the ones who'd given her that diary in first year. The ones who tortured Bill's face into a mess of scars. The ones hunting Harry right now. Here, she said coldly, dropping the ingredients onto the table between them. Draco flinched as though she'd threatened him. Crush the valerian root with the flat of your blade, he said quietly, eyes on the table. Don't chop it. I know how to prepare valerian root, Malfoy. Just trying to help, Weasley. His voice lacked its usual sneer. They worked in tense silence for nearly 20 minutes. Ginny had to admit, Draco was skilled at potion making. His hands moved with practiced precision despite their slight tremor. Stir 7 times clockwise, then once counterclockwise, he murmured as she took the stirring rod. I can count, Malfoy. The corner of his mouth twitched. Just making sure. Wouldn't want you to blow us up because you were too busy thinking about Potter to pay attention. There it was, the Malfoy she knew and loathed. Don't talk about Harry, she hissed, knuckles white around the stirring rod. Touchy subject. Trouble in paradise with the chosen one. At least he's out there fighting. Not hiding behind Daddy and his Death Eater friends. Something dangerous flashed in Draco's eyes. You don't know anything about me or my father. I know enough. Their potion began to bubble ominously, turning an angry red instead of the peaceful blue it should have been. You're stirring too fast, Draco warned, reaching for her hand. Ginny jerked away. Don't touch me. The cauldron gave a violent shudder before exploding upward, showering them both with half-finished Dreamless Sleep Potion. Ginny gasped as the hot liquid soaked through her robes. Merlin's beard, exclaimed Slughorn, hurrying over. What happened here? Weasley wasn't paying attention to her stirring, Draco said flatly. He was distracting me, Ginny countered. Slughorn looked between them, disappointment evident. I expected better from both of you. 10 points from each house, and you'll both report to my office at 8 tonight to brew it again. Correctly this time. Professor, Ginny started. No arguments, Miss Weasley. Now clean this mess and see Madame Pomfrey if you have any burns. Ginny glared at Draco as Slughorn walked away. Thanks a lot, Malfoy. He shook potion from his sleeves, not meeting her eyes. You're welcome, Weasley. Word of their detention spread quickly. By lunchtime, Neville cornered her in the Great Hall. Are you okay? Being alone with Malfoy, I can handle myself, Neville. Ginny stabbed at her shepherd's pie. It's just brewing a potion. Luna drifted into the seat across from them, her radish earring swinging. Be careful, Ginny. Draco Malfoy's head is full of Raxburts this year, but that might make him more dangerous, not less. What does that even mean, Luna? Ginny sighed. It means he's confused, Luna said simply. Confused people sometimes make desperate choices. Ginny glanced across the hall where Draco sat alone at the Slytherin table, not eating, just staring at his empty plate. Crabbe and Goyle had moved down the table, sitting with the Carrow's favorite students now. The new Hogwarts hierarchy had reshuffled things, and apparently Draco wasn't on top anymore. We're meeting in the room of requirement tomorrow night, Neville whispered, pulling her attention back. Seamus thinks he's figured out how to access the Hogwarts radio transmitter. We might be able to broadcast messages to the outside. Dumbledore's army had gone underground again, this time with Neville, Luna, and Ginny leading instead of Harry. They were the resistance now, small acts of defiance to remind everyone that Hogwarts hadn't fallen completely. I'll be there, Ginny promised. Just have to survive detention with Malfoy first. Watch your back, Neville warned. His father's right in you-know-who's inner circle. I know exactly who Draco Malfoy is, Ginny said coldly. At precisely 8 o'clock, Ginny knocked on Slughorn's office door. To her annoyance, Draco was already inside, ingredients laid out on the workbench. Ah, Miss Weasley. Come in, come in. Slughorn gestured her forward. Mr. Malfoy has already begun preparations. I've been called to an unavoidable meeting with the headmaster, so I'll need to leave you two to it. I trust you can brew this correctly without supervision. Yes, Professor, they answered in unison, then glared at each other. Excellent. I'll return to check your progress in 2 hours. The potion should be in its second phase by then. He gathered his robes and headed for the door, pausing to add, and please do try not to destroy my office in my absence. The door closed behind him with ominous finality. Let's just get this over with, Ginny said, dropping her bag and moving to the workbench. Draco nodded stiffly. Water's already measured. Start crushing the valerian root. They worked in silence for several minutes, the only sounds the gentle bubbling of the cauldron and the crushing of ingredients. Ginny found herself studying Draco when he wasn't looking. Dark circles underlined his eyes, and his cheekbones stood out sharply against his pale skin. He looked like he hadn't slept properly in months. Why are you staring at me, Weasley? He asked without looking up from the sapophoros beans he was slicing. Just making sure you don't sabotage our potion again. I wasn't the one who lost control of my stirring. You provoked me. It was hardly a provocation. If you can't handle hearing Potter's name without throwing a tantrum, oh, like you're one to talk about tantrums, Malfoy. Ginny's voice rose. I remember how you sulked for weeks when Harry beat you at Quidditch. A muscle twitched in Draco's jaw. Ancient history. Just like your family's pure-blood superiority complex. Is that ancient history too? Draco's knife slammed down. You know nothing about my family. I know enough. Your father slipped me Tom Riddle's diary when I was 11. Did you know that? Did you know what it did to me? Ginny was shaking now, years of rage bubbling up. Your Death Eater pals tortured my brother, they're hunting my friends, they killed Dumbledore, I didn't kill Dumbledore. Draco shouted. The admission hung between them like a physical thing. Draco's eyes widened as if shocked by his own outburst. "You were supposed to," Ginny said quietly. "Weren't you?" Draco turned away, hands gripping the edge of the workbench. "We need to add the moonstone powder now." "Draco, just drop it, Weasley." His voice was ragged. "Unless you want to fail this assignment too." Ginny reluctantly returned to the potion, sprinkling in moonstone as Draco stirred. The liquid gradually shifted from murky green to a clearer blue. "That's better," he murmured, mostly to himself. They continued working, the silence less hostile now, more complicated. Ginny found herself watching Draco's hands, elegant, precise, but still trembling slightly. "Have you heard from them?" Draco asked suddenly. "What?" "Potter. Granger. Your brother." His eyes remained fixed on the potion. "Are they alive?" The question caught her off guard. "Why do you care?" Draco shrugged, a jerky, uncomfortable movement. "Just curious if the Chosen One is actually doing anything useful while the rest of us are stuck in this hellhole." "Don't call it that," Ginny said automatically, glancing nervously at the door. "The Carrows have ears everywhere." "You didn't answer my question." Ginny hesitated. "No, I haven't heard from them. Security's too tight. But no news is good news, right? If they'd been caught, you know who would make sure everyone knew." Draco nodded, something like relief crossing his features. "Why did you ask about them?" Ginny pressed. "Forget it." "No, I want to know. Since when do you care whether Harry and my brother are alive or dead?" Draco's stirring faltered. "I don't, he ran a hand through his hair, disheveling the usually perfect blonde strands. "Things aren't what I thought they'd be, okay? What does that mean?" "Nothing. Forget I said anything." He turned away, moving to the supply cabinet for the next ingredients. Ginny watched him, curiosity warring with suspicion. What wasn't what he thought it would be? Having Voldemort in power? Being on the winning side? A commotion in the hallway interrupted her thoughts, shouting voices and running footsteps. Draco's head snapped up, a flash of fear crossing his face. The door burst open. Amicus Carrow stood in the doorway, wand drawn, two terrified third-years held by their collars. Well. What do we have here?" he said, shoving the children forward. They stumbled to their knees. Ginny recognized them, Colin Creevy's brother Dennis and a Hufflepuff girl named Eleanor. Both had fresh bruises on their faces. "Found these two putting up posters," Carrow said, dangling a parchment. "Potter's Army," he read with a sneer. "Still loyal to Potter, are they? Thought they needed a lesson." Dennis was crying silently. Eleanor's lip was split and bleeding. "They've learned their lesson," Ginny said, stepping forward. "Let them go." Carrow's eyes lit with malicious delight. "Defending them, Weasley. Perhaps you need a lesson too. Your blood traitor family always was too friendly with mudbloods." Draco moved slightly, positioning himself between the workbench and the scene. His face had gone blank, a mask of aristocratic indifference. "We were just brewing our potion, Professor," he said smoothly. "Slughorn will be back soon to check our progress." "Slughorn's busy with the headmaster," Carrow said. "And I think a practical defense lesson is more important than potions, don't you?" Crucio. The spell hit Eleanor before Ginny could react. The girl's scream pierced the room as she convulsed on the floor. "Stop it!" Ginny shouted, drawing her wand. Carrow turned his wand on her. "Want to join her, Weasley?" "That's enough," Draco's voice cut through the room, surprisingly firm. Carrow blinked, the Cruciatus curse lifting. Eleanor curled into a ball, sobbing. "What did you say to me, Malfoy?" Carrow asked dangerously. Draco straightened, that familiar Malfoy arrogance sliding into place. My father wouldn't approve of pure-blood students being cursed in front of me. Even blood traitors. He glanced dismissively at Ginny. Your father isn't here, Caro sneered. And last I heard, he's not exactly in the Dark Lord's favor. Not after your failure. Draco paled but held his ground. The Dark Lord assigned me to monitor student activities. I can't do that if you damage them beyond use. Ginny stared at Draco, shocked by the cold calculation in his voice. Was he actually trying to help, or just asserting his own authority? Caro seemed uncertain. The hierarchy among Death Eaters was complicated, and while the Malfoys had fallen from grace, they still had influence. Fine, he spat finally. But these two have detention with me tomorrow night. And you, he pointed at Ginny, watch yourself, Weasley. We're keeping a special eye on your family. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The moment he was gone, Ginny rushed to the injured students. Eleanor, Dennis, are you okay? Eleanor whimpered as Ginny helped her sit up. Dennis wiped his tears, trying to look brave. We were just putting up posters, he whispered. For day. I know, Ginny said gently. You're both very brave. But you need to be more careful. She conjured a handkerchief, dabbing at Eleanor's bloody lip. You shouldn't be involved in that nonsense, Draco said harshly, returning to the potion. You'll just get yourselves killed. Better than living under you-know-who, Dennis said with surprising defiance. Draco's back stiffened. Spoken like someone who has no idea what death really looks like. And you do? Ginny challenged. Draco turned, his gray eyes haunted. Yes, Weasley. I do. Something in his expression made Ginny believe him. She helped the younger students to their feet. Go straight to your common rooms. Take different routes, and if anyone asks, you've been in the hospital wing getting bruise paste. They nodded, mumbling thanks before slipping out the door. When they were gone, Ginny rounded on Draco. What was that? What was what? He'd returned to stirring the potion. That whole Dark Lord assigned me to monitor students thing. Since when are you Voldemort's hall monitor? Draco flinched at the name. Don't say his name. Answer the question, Malfoy. He sighed, setting down the stirring rod. I'm not monitoring anything. I just said that to make Caro back off. Why would you do that? Contrary to what you might think, Weasley, I don't enjoy watching children being tortured. Could have fooled me, Ginny said, though with less heat than before. You certainly enjoyed tormenting first years when you were in Umbridge's inquisitorial squad. That was. Draco ran a hand through his hair again. That was different. How? Nobody was using unforgivable curses on children. He snapped. Nobody was dying. It was just school politics and house rivalries and... He trailed off, looking suddenly exhausted. It wasn't like this. Ginny studied him, genuinely puzzled by this version of Draco Malfoy. I don't understand you. Join the club, he muttered, returning to the potion. They worked in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. The potion gradually turned the correct shade of deep blue. It's ready for the stasis period, Draco said finally. 2 hours of simmering before the next ingredients. Ginny nodded, pulling up a stool. They couldn't leave the potion unattended. Draco sat across the workbench, keeping the cauldron between them. He pulled a textbook from his bag and began to read. Did you mean it? Ginny asked after several minutes of silence. About not enjoying watching people being tortured. Draco looked up, annoyance flickering across his face. Is that so hard to believe? Honestly? Yes. Ginny leaned forward. Your father was there when Voldemort returned. He went back to him willingly. Draco's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about my father's choices. I know he tried to kill me and my friends at the Department of Mysteries. I know he gave me that diary that nearly killed me in my first year. Something shifted in Draco's expression. What diary? Ginny hesitated. She rarely talked about the Chamber of Secrets, about Tom Riddle's possession of her. It was a wound that had never fully healed. Your father slipped Tom Riddle's diary into my cauldron before first year, she said finally. It contained a memory of Voldemort from when he was 16. It possessed me. Made me open the Chamber of Secrets. Draco's face went very still. My father gave you a diary that possessed you? Ginny nodded. I didn't know, he said quietly. Would it have mattered if you did? Draco didn't answer immediately. I don't know, he admitted finally. Back then? Probably not. I was a stupid kid who thought my father could do no wrong. And now? He looked away. Now I know better. The candid admission surprised her. Draco Malfoy admitting his father wasn't perfect. The world really had turned upside down. Is that why you didn't identify Potter? Ginny asked suddenly. At your manor? Draco's head snapped up. What are you talking about? Ron told me. When the Snatchers brought them to Malfoy Manor. You pretended not to recognize Harry. Panic flashed across his face. Your brother told you that? Yes. Why did you do it? Draco stood abruptly. We need more Valerian root for the next phase. I'll get it from the supply cabinet. Draco, drop it, Weasley. He busied himself at the cabinet, shoulders rigid with tension. Ginny watched him, pieces of a puzzle she hadn't known existed starting to shift in her mind. The detention continued with minimal conversation, both of them focused on completing the potion correctly. By the time Slughorn returned, they had a perfect batch of dreamless sleep ready for bottling. Excellent work. Slughorn beamed, examining the potion's color and consistency. I'm pleased to see you two can work together productively when properly motivated. Ginny caught Draco's eye across the workbench. Something unspoken passed between them, not friendship, not even understanding exactly, but an acknowledgement. For 2 hours, they'd been more than Weasley and Malfoy, more than Gryffindor and Slytherin. You're dismissed, Slughorn said. And do try to pay more attention in class tomorrow. Draco gathered his belongings without a word and headed for the door. Malfoy, Ginny called after him. He paused, not turning. Thanks. For what you did with Carol. His shoulders tensed. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't respond. I didn't do it for you, Weasley, he said finally, and walked out. Life at Hogwarts continued its grim pattern. The Carrow's reign of terror intensified, with detentions becoming increasingly brutal. Dumbledore's army met secretly, planning small acts of resistance, graffiti on the walls, helping targeted students escape punishment, spreading news about the outside world. Ginny didn't speak to Draco again for nearly 2 weeks after their detention. They avoided each other in the corridors and sat as far apart as possible in the classes they shared. But sometimes she'd catch him watching her across the Great Hall, his expression unreadable. Everything changed on a cold November night. Ginny was alone in an abandoned corridor on the 4th floor, having just finished painting Dumbledore's army, still recruiting, across the wall in magical paint that would resist the Carrow's removal attempts for at least a day. She'd stayed behind to complete the charm while Neville and Seamus kept watch at either end of the corridor. Their signal, a Patronus from Seamus, would warn her if danger approached. A silver fox came bounding through the wall. Carrow's coming. East stairwell. Ginny cursed, pocketing her wand. The paint was still wet, evidence of her crime glaring in the torchlight. She turned to flee toward the west end when a second Patronus, Neville's clumsy but effective bear, appeared. Filch and Mrs. Norris on patrol. Can't get through. She was trapped. Footsteps echoed from the east stairwell, growing louder. Ginny looked frantically for somewhere to hide. Nothing. The corridor was empty except for the suits of armor that offered no concealment. Check every floor, Electo Caro voice carried up the stairwell. The charm detected magic in this area. Ginny pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding. If they caught her with fresh magical paint on her hands, the punishment would be severe. The Caros had been looking for an excuse to make an example of a ringleader. Suddenly, a pale hand shot out from behind a tapestry she hadn't noticed, grabbing her wrist and yanking her backward. She stumbled into darkness, a hand clamping over her mouth to stifle her surprised cry. Quiet, a familiar voice hissed in her ear. They're coming. Draco. She'd know that voice anywhere. They were in a narrow passage behind the tapestry, barely wide enough for two people. Ginny could feel Draco's chest against her back, his breath on her hair. Footsteps approached the tapestry. Ginny held her breath. Draco's hand remained firmly over her mouth, his other arm around her waist holding her still. Look at this, Electo's voice came, dangerously close. Another one of their pathetic messages. We'll find who did this, her brother Amicus growled. When we do. The Dark Lord grows impatient with these disruptions, Electo said. Perhaps we need to make an example. The Longbottom boy, or maybe the Weasley girl. Draco's arm tightened around Ginny's waist. She could feel his heart hammering against her back. Keep searching, Amicus ordered. They can't have gone far. The footsteps moved away. Ginny remained frozen in Draco's grip, afraid to move until she was certain the Caros were gone. Finally, Draco's hand slipped from her mouth. They're gone, he whispered, releasing her. Ginny turned to face him in the narrow passage. It was too dark to see clearly, but she could make out the pale oval of his face inches from hers. What are you doing here? She demanded in a whisper. Saving your skin, apparently, he replied. You're welcome. Why? She sensed rather than saw his shrug in the darkness. Momentary insanity. Draco. He sighed. Look, the Caros have been talking about making examples. They're not just using the Cruciatus curse anymore. Some of the 7th-year Slytherins have been practicing the Imperius curse on detained students. Ginny felt sick. That's illegal. As if that matters anymore. The bitterness in his voice was palpable. The point is, you don't want to get caught. So you just happened to be lurking behind a tapestry when I needed rescuing? Ginny asked suspiciously. A pause. No. I followed you. You what? Keep your voice down, he hissed. Yes, I followed you. I saw you sneaking out of the library with Longbottom and Finnegan looking like you were up to something. So you were spying on me. I was concerned. The admission hung between them in the darkness. Why? Ginny pressed. Draco didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was so quiet she almost missed it. I don't know. They stood in silence, too close in the narrow passage, the tension between them shifting into something neither knew how to name. We should wait a bit longer, Draco said finally. Make sure they're really gone. Ginny nodded, then realized he probably couldn't see it. Okay. More silence. Ginny was acutely aware of his presence, the slight scent of expensive cologne, the sound of his breathing, the way the small space seemed to crackle with unacknowledged energy. You said your father gave you a diary, Draco said suddenly. That it possessed you. Yes. Was it the Dark Lord? Who possessed you? Ginny swallowed hard. A piece of him. From when he was young. That's why you hate my father so much. One of many reasons. Draco was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, he said finally. The words were so unexpected that Ginny wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. What? I'm sorry, he repeated, more firmly this time. For what my father did to you. You were just a kid. Ginny didn't know how to respond. In all the years she'd known Draco Malfoy, she'd never heard him apologize for anything. Why are you being like this? She asked. Like what? Human. He gave a short, humorless laugh. As opposed to what? The monster you think I am? The monster you've always tried to be, Ginny countered. Strutting around, bullying people, calling Hermione a mudblood, bragging about your father being a Death Eater. I was a child, Draco cut her off. A stupid, spoiled child who believed everything his father told him. And now? He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Now I've seen what it really means. Being a Death Eater. Following the Dark Lord. His voice dropped to a whisper. It's not what I thought it would be. What did you think it would be? Glory. Power. Respect. His laugh was hollow. Instead, it's just fear and pain and... He trailed off. And what? Death, he said quietly. So much death. Ginny didn't know what to say to that. This vulnerable, haunted version of Draco Malfoy was someone she'd never imagined could exist. I should go, she said finally. It's been long enough. Wait. His hand found her arm in the darkness. The Carrows might still be patrolling. Let me check first. Before she could protest, he slipped out from behind the tapestry. Ginny held her breath, listening for any sign of danger. After what felt like an eternity, the tapestry moved again. Coast is clear, Draco whispered. But go straight back to your common room. Don't stop for anything. Ginny emerged from the hidden passage, blinking in the torchlight. Draco stood before her, his face a careful mask once more. Why are you helping me? She asked again. He looked away. Maybe I'm tired of watching people get hurt. Even blood traitors like me. His eyes met hers, something fierce in their grey depths. Yes, Weasley. Even you. Ginny studied him, this boy who'd been her enemy for so long. I don't understand you, Malfoy. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. That makes two of us. Footsteps echoed from a distant corridor, breaking the moment between them. Go, Draco urged. Now. Ginny hesitated, then made a decision that surprised even her. She leaned forward and kissed his cheek, a brief press of lips against skin. Thank you, she whispered, and then she was gone, running silently toward Gryffindor Tower, her heart pounding with something that wasn't entirely fear. Behind her, Draco Malfoy stood frozen, hand touching the spot where her lips had been, something shifting irrevocably in his world. The next day in potions, Slughorn assigned new partners. Ginny found herself working with Luna instead of Draco. You have Raxperts around you today, Luna observed dreamily as they prepared ingredients. They're attracted to confused emotions, you know. I'm not confused, Ginny lied. It's all right, Luna said, slicing dandelion roots with perfect precision despite her apparently wandering attention. Draco Malfoy has them too. More than anyone I've ever seen. Ginny's knife slipped, nearly taking off her finger. What does Malfoy have to do with anything? Luna's protuberant eyes blinked slowly. Oh, I just noticed you both keep looking at each other when you think the other isn't watching. It's rather sweet, actually. It's not sweet, it's... Ginny stopped, realizing she was about to confirm Luna's observation. We're not looking at each other. If you say so. Luna sprinkled powdered moonstone into their cauldron. But you might want to be careful. The Nargles tell me the Carrows are watching you especially closely. Ginny's blood ran cold. What do you mean? They were asking questions about you in the Ravenclaw common room. About who your friends are, where you go after hours. Luna stirred their potion calmly. I told them you spend all your time in the library studying for NEWTS, but I don't think they believed me. Across the room, Draco was working with Blaise Zabini. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up, his eyes finding hers immediately. Something passed between them, a warning, perhaps, or concern. Just be careful, Ginny, Luna said softly. Hogwarts has eyes everywhere now. That night, Ginny couldn't sleep. Luna's warning kept replaying in her mind, along with the memory of Draco's unexpected rescue. Nothing made sense anymore. The world had turned upside down, Draco Malfoy protecting her, apologizing for his father, confessing doubts about Voldemort. A soft tapping at her dormitory window startled her from her thoughts. She slipped from bed, wand at the ready, and peered out into the darkness. An elegant eagle owl hovered outside, a small scroll clutched in its talons. Ginny recognized it immediately, Malfoy's owl. She opened the window just enough to take the scroll, then quickly shut it again. The owl swooped away into the night. With trembling fingers, Ginny unrolled the small parchment. Astronomy Tower. Midnight. Important. No signature, but none was needed. Ginny stared at the message, heart racing. Was it a trap? But why would Draco bother trapping her when he'd had the chance to turn her in last night? She glanced at her watch. 11:45. Just enough time to get to the astronomy tower if she hurried. Slipping on a jumper over her nightclothes and grabbing her wand, Ginny cast a disillusionment charm on herself, not perfect, but better than nothing, and crept down to the common room. The fat lady grumbled sleepily as Ginny pushed the portrait open, but didn't fully wake. The castle was eerily quiet as she made her way through shadowed corridors, avoiding the known patrol routes of Filch and the Carrows. Twice she had to duck into alcoves to avoid prefects, her heart hammering so loudly she was certain they'd hear it. Finally, she reached the base of the astronomy tower. Taking a deep breath, Ginny began to climb the spiral stairs. Draco was waiting at the top, a dark silhouette against the star-filled sky. He turned at the sound of her footsteps, wand raised, then lowered it when he recognized her. "You came," he said, sounding genuinely surprised. "Your note said it was important." Ginny remained by the stairs, ready to flee if necessary. "What's going on?" Draco glanced over his shoulder, checking they were alone. "The Carrows are planning a raid on the Room of Requirement tomorrow night. They know about your DA meetings." Ginny felt the blood drain from her face. "How?" Harper overheard Longbottom and Finnegan talking in the bathroom. The idiot took the information straight to the Carrows, hoping for a reward. Draco's expression was grim. "They're planning to make examples of the ringleaders." "How do you know this?" "I was in the staff room returning essays for Slughorn. Heard the Carrows discussing it with Snape." Ginny's mind raced. Nearly 20 students were planning to meet tomorrow night, practicing defensive spells, planning their next act of resistance. If the Carrows caught them all. "We have to warn everyone," she said urgently. "You need to cancel the meeting," Draco corrected. "The Carrows are watching you, Longbottom, and Lovegood especially closely. They're monitoring your mail, your movements." "Why are you telling me this?" Ginny asked, the question that had been burning inside her since he pulled her behind that tapestry. "Why help us?" Draco turned away, moving to the parapet. The moonlight silvered his hair, casting half his face in shadow. "I told you before. I'm tired of watching people get hurt. There's more to it than that." He was silent for a long moment, staring out at the dark grounds below. "You know what happened here," he said finally, his voice so quiet she had to step closer to hear him. "Last year. On this tower." Ginny's throat tightened. Harry had told her everything, how Draco had cornered Dumbledore, how he'd lowered his wand, how Snape had cast the killing curse instead. "Yes," she said softly. "I was supposed to kill him." Draco's hands gripped the stone parapet. "That was my assignment from the Dark Lord. Kill Albus Dumbledore or watch my parents die. But you couldn't do it." "No." He looked down at his left arm, where Ginny knew the dark mark lay hidden beneath his sleeve. "I'm not a killer. But I'm not brave either. Not like Potter. Not like you." Ginny moved to stand beside him at the parapet, close but not touching. "It takes courage to defy Voldemort, even in small ways. Draco flinched at the name. "Don't, fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself," Ginny quoted. "Dumbledore said that." "Dumbledore isn't here anymore." "Because of Snape," Ginny said firmly. "Not because of you." Draco looked at her, surprise evident in his pale features. "You don't blame me?" "I used to," she admitted. "When Harry first told me what happened. But—" She hesitated, organizing her thoughts. "You were 16, Draco. Threatened, coerced, terrified for your parents. And in the end, you couldn't do it. You lowered your wand. That doesn't make me good. It just makes me weak." "No," Ginny said fiercely. "It makes you human." Their eyes met, moonlight reflecting in the grey depths of his. For a moment, something powerful passed between them, understanding, perhaps, or recognition of a shared pain. Draco looked away first. "You need to warn your friends. But carefully. Don't use owls, don't leave notes, don't speak about it where you might be overheard." "I'll use the DA coins," Ginny said, referring to the enchanted galleons Hermione had created years ago. "We still have them." Draco nodded. "Good." He glanced at his watch. "You should go. It's not safe to be out past curfew." "Says the boy who summoned me to the astronomy tower at midnight," Ginny said with a small smile. The corner of Draco's mouth lifted slightly. "I'm a prefect. I have an excuse." "And what excuse will you use for warning the enemy about the Carrow's plans?" The almost smile vanished. "No one can know about this, Weasley. No one. If the Dark Lord found out I was—" He broke off, swallowing hard. Ginny impulsively reached out, touching his arm. "I won't tell anyone. I promise." He looked down at her hand on his arm, then back to her face. Something vulnerable flickered in his expression. "Why do you trust me?" he asked softly. Ginny considered the question. "I'm not sure that I do, completely," she answered honestly. "But I think you're trying to do the right thing. And that's a start." Draco's hand moved to cover hers, warm and surprisingly gentle. "Be careful, Ginny." It was the first time he'd ever used her first name. The sound of it in his voice did strange things to her insides. "You too, Draco," she replied quietly. They stood like that for a moment, hands touching, eyes locked, the night air charged with possibilities neither dared name. Then Draco stepped back, breaking the connection. "Go. Before someone notices you're missing." Ginny nodded, reluctantly moving toward the stairs. At the top step, she paused and looked back. "Thank you for the warning. Don't make me regret it," he said, but there was no malice in his tone. Ginny slipped back down the spiral staircase, her mind whirling. Everything she thought she knew about Draco Malfoy was being systematically dismantled, brick by brick. In its place was emerging someone far more complex, more human, and infinitely more dangerous to her peace of mind. Because despite everything, their families, their houses, their positions on opposite sides of a war, Ginny Weasley was beginning to care about Draco Malfoy. And that was the most forbidden thing of all. Chapter 2, Dangerous Alliance. Ginny woke up with her mind spinning. Last night felt like some weird dream, meeting Draco Malfoy on the astronomy tower, him warning her about the Carrow's plans, the way his hand had felt on hers. But the memory was too vivid, too real to be anything but truth. She grabbed her enchanted DA coin from her bedside drawer and sent a quick message, "Meeting cancelled. Carrow's no. Spread the word." As she dressed for breakfast, Ginny couldn't stop thinking about Draco. For years, he'd been the enemy, Slytherin prince, Death Eater's son, Harry's rival. Now she didn't know what he was. "You okay?" Neville asked as she slid onto the bench beside him in the Great Hall. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just tired," she lied, eyes automatically scanning the Slytherin table. Draco sat alone at the far end, pushing food around his plate. He looked as exhausted as she felt. Got your message, Neville whispered. How'd you find out? Ginny hesitated. Can't say. But it's reliable. You sure? We really needed this meeting. Seamus figured out how to tap into the wireless network. The Carrows were going to raid the room of requirement. Ginny cut him off. They know about us, Neville. They're watching us. Neville's face paled beneath his scars. Bloody hell. We need to be smarter, she said. Change meeting places, times. Maybe smaller groups. Yeah, right. Neville nodded. I'll tell Luna. Ginny glanced toward the Ravenclaw table, but Luna wasn't there. Where is she? Dunno. Haven't seen her this morning. A cold feeling crept up Ginny's spine. Luna always came to breakfast, said it was important to feed the Raxperts or something. Across the hall, Draco was watching her. Their eyes met, and he gave an almost imperceptible nod toward the exit. I forgot my transfiguration essay, Ginny said abruptly, standing. Be right back. She hurried from the great hall, feeling Draco's eyes on her back. In the entrance hall, she hesitated, unsure where to go. A hand grabbed her wrist, pulling her into a small alcove behind a suit of armor. They took Love good, Draco said without preamble. What? Ginny's heart dropped. When? Why? Last night. The Carrows found a copy of the Quibbler in her bag. Latest edition has an article supporting Potter. Where is she? Ginny demanded. Dungeon cells. Draco's face was grim. They're making an example of her. We have to get her out. Keep your voice down, he hissed. The walls literally have ears now. He gestured to a small carving that resembled a human ear on the stone wall beside them. Ginny felt sick. What are they doing to her? Draco's jaw tightened. Nothing yet. Waiting for permission from the headmaster. Snape wouldn't. Snape isn't in charge anymore, Draco cut her off. Not really. The Carrows report directly to the Dark Lord now. Ginny leaned against the wall, mind racing. I need to help her. You can't just march into the dungeons. You'll end up in the cell next to hers. I can't just leave her there. Ginny's voice rose despite Draco's warning. He grabbed her shoulders. Listen to me. They want you to do something stupid. They're using Lovegood as bait. Ginny stared into his eyes, searching for deceit and finding only urgent concern. Why do you care? I told you, yeah, you're tired of watching people get hurt, she finished. But it's more than that, isn't it? What's really going on, Draco? He dropped his hands from her shoulders, taking a step back. Look, do you want my help getting Lovegood out or not? You'd help me rescue Luna? If you promise not to get us all killed in the process. Ginny studied him, torn between suspicion and desperate hope. Why should I trust you? A flash of hurt crossed his face, quickly masked. You shouldn't. But right now, I'm all you've got. He was right, and they both knew it. Fine, she said. What's your plan? The plan, as it turned out, was simple but risky. Draco, as a prefect, had access to the dungeon cells. He would get Luna out during dinner when most of the castle would be in the Great Hall. Ginny would create a diversion in the entrance hall to draw away any lingering guards. What kind of diversion? Ginny asked as they huddled in an empty classroom, voices low. Something flashy but not immediately traceable to you, Draco replied. Maybe those fireworks your brothers make? Weasley's wildfire whiz-bangs. Ginny grinned. I've got a stash. Set them off at exactly 7:15. I'll get Lovegood to the second-floor girls' bathroom, the one with moaning Myrtle. Meet us there. What about after? The Carrows will know she's gone. Draco ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Ginny was starting to recognize as a sign of stress. One problem at a time, Weasley. It's Ginny, she corrected automatically. You called me Ginny last night. Something shifted in his eyes. Right. Ginny. The way he said her name sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. So. 7:15, she said, trying to refocus. Fireworks in the entrance hall. Don't get caught, he warned. I grew up with Fred and George. Causing trouble without getting caught is practically my specialty. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. Just be careful. Why? She challenged. Worried about me, Malfoy? Yes. The blunt admission caught her off guard. I am. Before she could respond, he was gone, slipping out the classroom door with a final warning look. Ginny leaned against a desk, trying to understand the jumble of emotions whirling inside her. This was Draco Malfoy, Slytherin, Death Eater, enemy. So why did her heart race when he looked at her that way? At precisely 7:13, Ginny crept into position behind a large pillar in the entrance hall. Most students were already at dinner, but Crabbe and Goyle loitered near the dungeon entrance, clearly on guard duty. She removed 3 wildfire whiz-bangs from her pocket, activated them with a tap of her wand, and sent them soaring toward the great marble staircase with a whispered, Wingardium Leviosa. The timing was perfect. At 7:15 exactly, the first firework exploded in a spectacular shower of red and gold stars that transformed into roaring lions. The second burst into blue and bronze eagles that screeched and dive-bombed students. The third, a special edition Fred had given her, exploded into the shape of Harry's face, which winked before morphing into the words, Dumbledore's army still recruiting. The entrance hall erupted into chaos. Crabbe and Goyle abandoned their post, rushing forward with wands drawn, shooting ineffective stunning spells at the fireworks, which, true to the Weasley twins' design, only multiplied when hit. Ginny waited until they were fully distracted before casting a disillusionment charm on herself and slipping away toward the second floor. Moaning Myrtle's bathroom was deserted when she arrived, the ghost herself nowhere to be seen. Ginny paced anxiously, checking her watch every few seconds. 7:25, 7:30. What if something had gone wrong? What if Draco had been caught? What if, the door creaked open? Ginny whipped around, wand raised. Draco entered first, looking both ways before gesturing someone in behind him. Luna followed, her face bruised but her dreamy expression intact. Luna. Ginny dropped her wand and rushed forward, enveloping her friend in a hug. Are you okay? Did they hurt you? I'm fine, Luna said serenely. The Nargles kept me company. Though the accommodations were rather uncomfortable. We need to hide her, Draco said urgently, still watching the door. The Carrows will notice she's missing any minute now. Room of requirement? Ginny suggested. Draco shook his head. Too obvious. That's the first place they'll look. She can't go back to Ravenclaw Tower, Ginny said. They'll be watching all the dormitories. I know a place, Luna interjected calmly. The castle showed it to me once when I needed to hide from some bullies. It's behind the mirror on the 4th floor, a small room no one uses anymore. Draco and Ginny exchanged looks. Worth a try, Draco said with a shrug. But we need to move fast. They're searching for me right now, Luna informed them, as if commenting on the weather. I can feel it. The castle is upset. Ginny had long ago learned not to question Luna's strange pronouncements. Let's go. Stick close together. They left the bathroom cautiously, Ginny taking the lead while Draco brought up the rear, constantly glancing over his shoulder. Luna drifted between them, seeming almost unconcerned about their precarious situation. They just reached the 3rd floor when footsteps echoed from the stairwell above. Draco grabbed Ginny's arm, pulling her and Luna into the shadow of a large statue. Must have had help, Electo Carrow voice drifted down. Check every floor, every room. The Lovegood girl couldn't have escaped on her own. More footsteps approached from below. They were trapped between two search parties. In here, Draco whispered, opening a door Ginny hadn't noticed. The three of them squeezed into what turned out to be a tiny broom closet, barely big enough for two people, let alone three. Ginny found herself pressed against Draco's chest, Luna somehow managing to find space in the corner. Draco's arm wrapped around Ginny's waist, steadying her as the door clicked shut, plunging them into darkness. "Lumos," Luna whispered, but Draco quickly covered her wand with his hand. "No light," he said. "They might see it under the door." They stood frozen as footsteps approached, past the closet, then faded away again. Ginny was acutely aware of Draco's heartbeat against her cheek, the slight scent of his cologne, the warmth of his body in the cold closet. "I think they're gone," she whispered after several minutes of silence. "Wait," Draco murmured, his breath stirring her hair. "Just to be sure." They remained still for another minute. Ginny's thoughts were anything but still, racing with confusion over how right it felt to be held against Draco Malfoy's chest. "This reminds me of the nest-building rituals of blibbering humdingers," Luna commented softly. "They also hide in small dark places with their potential mates." Ginny felt Draco's chest shake with silent laughter. The tension broke, and suddenly she was fighting her own giggles. "Only you, Luna," she whispered. "Only you would compare us to blibbering humdingers while hiding from Death Eaters." "Oh, I didn't mean you too," Luna said serenely. "Though now that you mention it." "Love good," Draco interrupted, "now is really not the time." "Time is quite relative, you know," Luna replied. "Einstein theorized, coast is clear," Draco cut her off, pushing the door open a crack. "Let's move." They slipped out of the closet and continued their journey to the fourth floor, moving silently through the shadows. Twice more they had to hide from patrols, but finally they reached the mirror Luna had mentioned. "It opens if you tap the right corner 3 times and say, Revelio," Luna explained. Ginny did as instructed, and the mirror swung outward, revealing a small room with a dusty sofa, a writing desk, and a tiny fireplace. "Perfect," Ginny breathed. "Luna, you can hide here until we figure out what to do next." "I'll need some pudding," Luna said matter-of-factly. "And perhaps my copy of Fantastic Beasts if you could sneak it from my dormitory." "I'll bring you food," Ginny promised. "And I'll try to get your book. Just stay hidden, okay? Don't come out for anyone but me or," she glanced at Draco, "or Malfoy." Luna nodded, settling onto the sofa as if she'd been invited for tea rather than hidden from torturers. "The Raxperts say you two have much to discuss." "I'll be fine here." Ginny and Draco exchanged awkward glances. "We should go," he said. "It's not safe to stay in one place too long." "Right," Ginny agreed. "Luna, we'll be back soon with supplies." Luna waved dreamily as the mirror swung shut, sealing her in the hidden room. "That was." Draco began as they moved away down the corridor. "Pure Luna," Ginny finished with a fond smile. "Thanks for helping her." "I don't know what they would have done to her if—" "Don't think about that," Draco cut her off. "She's safe now." They walked in silence for a moment, the question of what to do next hanging between them. "The Carrows will be watching you more closely after this," Draco warned. "They'll suspect DA involvement in Lovegood's escape." "They always watch me," Ginny shrugged. "I'm a Weasley. Blood traitor, remember? This is different. They're getting desperate. The Dark Lord isn't happy with the continued resistance at Hogwarts." Ginny stopped walking, turning to face him. "Why are you telling me this? Why help us?" "You're risking everything, Draco." He didn't answer immediately, his gray eyes searching her face as if looking for something. "I told you before, you're tired of seeing people get hurt." "Yeah," Ginny interrupted. "But this is more than that. You actively helped us rescue a prisoner. That's not just standing aside, that's taking a side." "Maybe I am," he said quietly. "Which side?" "I don't know anymore. The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. I just know I can't be part of what they're doing. Ginny studied him, the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way his left arm unconsciously cradled his right where she knew the dark mark lay hidden. What changed? She asked softly. Draco looked away. Everything. He swallowed hard. Last year, I thought I knew what I wanted. What I believed in. Pure-blood supremacy, the Dark Lord's vision, my family's legacy. Then he gave me an assignment, kill Dumbledore or watch my parents die. Harry told me, Ginny said. He was there, under his invisibility cloak. He saw you lower your wand. Draco's head snapped up. Potter saw. She nodded. He told me you couldn't do it. That Snape stepped in. I was weak, Draco said bitterly. Couldn't even protect my family properly. No, Ginny said fiercely, grabbing his arm. You weren't weak. You were human. There's a difference between being strong and being cruel, Draco. Not killing Dumbledore wasn't weakness, it was strength. He stared at her, conflicting emotions warring in his eyes. How can you say that? After everything my family's done to yours? Everything I've done. Because I see you, Ginny said simply. Not Lucius Malfoy's son. Not the Slytherin prince. You. And you're not the person I thought you were. Something shifted in his expression, surprise, wonder, and something deeper she couldn't name. Ginny, he began, but footsteps interrupted whatever he was about to say. Someone's coming, she whispered. Without thinking, she grabbed his hand and pulled him through the nearest door, which turned out to lead to a narrow spiral staircase. They raced up the steps, emerging onto the battlements of the North Tower. The night air was bitingly cold. Ginny shivered in her thin school robes, wrapping her arms around herself as they moved to the shelter of a stone turret. Here, Draco said, removing his cloak and draping it over her shoulders. The gesture was so unexpected, so un-Malfoy-like, that Ginny could only stare at him. What? He asked defensively. You're cold. Thanks, she said, pulling the cloak tighter. It smelled like him, clean linen and expensive cologne. They stood in silence for a moment, looking out over the dark grounds. The moon was nearly full, casting the landscape in silver light. In the distance, the forbidden forest loomed, a black mass against the starry sky. It's beautiful, Draco said softly. Even now, with everything. Hogwarts is still beautiful. Ginny glanced at him, surprised by the sentiment. Yeah. It is. I used to love it here, he continued, still gazing at the view. Before, everything. 5th year was the last time I really felt like a student, not he broke off, left hand unconsciously touching his right forearm. Not a Death Eater, Ginny finished for him. He flinched at the term but nodded. I never wanted this, you know. Not really. I wanted to make my father proud, to be powerful, respected. I never understood what it actually meant until it was too late. It's not too late, Ginny said, stepping closer to him. What you did tonight, helping Luna, that matters, Draco. One good deed doesn't erase everything else. No, but it's a start. She touched his arm gently. You're more than your mistakes, Draco. More than that mark on your arm. He looked down at her hand on his sleeve, then up to her face. The moonlight highlighted the angular planes of his features, the silver blonde of his hair almost ethereal in the darkness. Why don't you hate me? He asked softly. You should hate me. I did, Ginny admitted. For years. You were everything I was taught to despise, arrogant, cruel, prejudiced. And now? Now I'm not so sure. She held his gaze. People change, Draco. I'm watching you change right in front of me. Something vulnerable and raw flickered in his eyes. Before she could react, he stepped forward, one hand coming up to cup her cheek. What if I don't know how to be anyone other than Draco Malfoy, Death Eater's son, he whispered. Then we'll figure it out together, Ginny said, heart hammering in her chest. For a moment, they stood frozen, the precipice of something monumental stretching before them. Then, as if drawn by an invisible force, they both leaned forward. The first touch of his lips on hers was hesitant, questioning. Ginny answered by sliding her hands up to his shoulders, drawing him closer. The kiss deepened, his arms wrapping around her waist, her fingers threading through his silky hair. It was nothing like kissing Harry, where that had been comfortable and warm. This was electric and dangerous. Every nerve ending in her body seemed to spark to life as Draco pulled her against him, his mouth moving with increasing confidence over hers. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ginny felt dizzy with the implications of what had just happened. That was. Draco began. Unexpected, Ginny finished. Not unwelcome though. His voice held a note of uncertainty she'd never heard from him before. In answer, she stood on tiptoe and pressed another quick kiss to his lips. Not unwelcome at all. The smile that spread across his face transformed him. Gone was the sneering Slytherin, the haunted Death Eater. In their place was just Draco, young, vulnerable, hopeful. This is insane, he said, though he didn't let go of her. A Malfoy and a Weasley. My brothers would have a collective heart attack, Ginny agreed with a small laugh. Your brother would hex me into next week. Which one? All of them, probably. But I was thinking of Potter's sidekick. Ron, Ginny corrected. And Harry's not his boss, they're friends. At Harry's name, Draco's arms loosened slightly. Potter. Right. Aren't you too? We broke up, Ginny said. Before he left. He said it wasn't safe for me to be with him while you know who was after him. Always the noble Gryffindor, Draco muttered, but without his usual malice. It was the right decision, Ginny said, though a small part of her still hurt at the memory. But that doesn't mean I stopped caring about him. Draco stepped back, his face closing off. Of course. Potter's the hero, after all. That's not what I meant, Ginny said, frustrated. I care about Harry, yes. He's important to me. But right now. She took a deep breath, hardly believing what she was about to admit. Right now, it's you I'm thinking about, Draco. The vulnerability returned to his eyes. Really? Really? She reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. I don't know what this is between us, and Merlin knows it's complicated, but I want to find out. He squeezed her hand, a smile tugging at his lips. Complicated is an understatement, Weasley. Ginny, she corrected. Ginny, he agreed, her name soft on his lips. They stayed on the battlements for another hour, talking in low voices about everything and nothing, Quidditch teams, they disagreed vehemently, favorite subjects, both secretly loved charms, childhood memories, carefully avoiding mentions of their family's feud. When the cold finally drove them inside, they parted with reluctance. Meet me tomorrow? Draco asked as they reached the point where they would go separate ways, he to the dungeons, she to Gryffindor Tower. There's a disused classroom on the 3rd floor, behind the portrait of Bridget Wenlock. No one ever goes there. After dinner, Ginny agreed. I need to check on Luna anyway. He glanced around to ensure they were alone, then pulled her in for one more quick kiss. Be careful, Ginny. You too, Draco. As she made her way back to her dormitory, Ginny touched her lips, still tingling from his kiss. What had started as the most unlikely alliance imaginable had become something far more dangerous, and thrilling. A Weasley and a Malfoy. Her parents would be horrified. Her brothers would be furious. And Harry. Ginny pushed the thought away. Harry had broken up with her, had left her behind. She couldn't put her life on hold waiting for him to return, if he returned. The war had changed everything, including her heart. Besides, nothing about her feelings for Draco negated what she'd felt for Harry. It was different, raw, new, forbidden. The very danger of it was part of the attraction. As she slipped into bed that night, Ginny wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. Trusting Draco Malfoy, kissing him, wanting him, it went against everything she'd been raised to believe. But war had a way of redrawing the lines between enemy and ally. And somewhere along the way, Draco Malfoy had crossed that line. The next few weeks passed in a blur of secret meetings, stolen kisses, and growing danger. Ginny and Draco established a routine, meeting in abandoned classrooms or hidden passages, sometimes just to talk, other times unable to resist the magnetic pull between them. Meanwhile, the Carrow's reign of terror intensified. Luna remained hidden in her secret room, with Ginny and occasionally Draco bringing her food and news. Dumbledore's army continued to resist, though more cautiously now, with Ginny using information from Draco to avoid the worst of the Carrow's traps. "They're bringing in Dementors next week," Draco warned during one of their meetings in late November. "For added security, they say, but really to terrorize the students." They sat side by side on a dusty desk, shoulders touching, hands intertwined. Ginny had grown to crave these moments, the simple comfort of his presence, the way his thumb absently stroked the back of her hand as he spoke. "Dementors at Hogwarts again," she said with a shudder. "That's going to make everything harder. They'll be patrolling the outer perimeter, not inside the castle." "Still." Draco squeezed her hand. "Be careful if you go outside. And warn your dear friends." "I will." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Thanks for telling me. I wish I could do more," he said softly. "Every day, I have to sit there and listen to them plan, watch them hurt people, and pretend I'm on their side." "You are doing more," Ginny insisted. "Every piece of information you give us helps. Every student you protect matters." Draco had taken to subtly sabotaging the Carrow's punishments when he could, casting weak versions of spells they ordered students to perform, accidentally misdirecting them when they were hunting rule breakers, creating distractions to help students escape. "It's not enough," he said bitterly. "Not nearly enough to make up for," Ginny silenced him with a kiss. "Stop. You're trying. That's what matters." He pulled her closer, burying his face in her hair. "I don't deserve you, Ginny Weasley." "Probably not," she agreed with a grin. "But you're stuck with me anyway." The lightness faded from his expression. "Am I? What happens when Potter comes back? When this war ends, if it ends in our favor? Where does that leave us?" It was a question Ginny had been avoiding. The future seemed so uncertain, so dangerous to contemplate. "I don't know," she admitted. "But right now, in this moment, I choose you, Draco. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." He kissed her then, deep and desperate, as if trying to imprint the moment on his memory. Ginny responded with equal fervor, fingers tangling in his hair, heart pounding with emotions too complex to name. When they broke apart, his gray eyes were dark with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I love you," he said suddenly. "I know it's insane, and impossible, and probably the worst timing in the history of wizard kind, but I love you, Ginny Weasley." The words hung in the air between them, momentous and terrifying. Ginny stared at him, shocked not by the sentiment, she'd felt it growing between them for weeks, but by his willingness to voice it. "You don't have to say it back," he added quickly, misinterpreting her silence. "I just needed you to know." "I love you too," she whispered, surprising herself with the truth of it. "Merlin help me, but I do." The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise after the longest night, brilliant, warm, transformative. He pulled her to him again, kissing her with such tenderness it brought tears to her eyes. Neither of them noticed the classroom door opening, not until a shocked voice interrupted their moment. "What the bloody hell is this?" They broke apart to find Neville Longbottom standing in the doorway, wand raised, expression cycling rapidly from confusion to shock to anger. "Neville!" Ginny gasped, jumping to her feet. "I can explain." "Explain what?" Neville demanded, wand pointed squarely at Draco's chest. Why you're snogging a Death Eater? Malfoy, of all people. Draco had risen too, slowly raising his hands to show he wasn't reaching for his wand. Longbottom, don't, Neville snapped. Don't speak to me, Malfoy. He turned back to Ginny. Have you lost your mind? He's one of them. His aunt tortured my parents. I know, Neville, Ginny said, stepping between Neville and Draco. But he's not like them. He's helping us. Helping us? Neville laughed bitterly. Right. More likely feeding you information to take back to the Carrows. If that were true, Draco said quietly, you'd all have been caught weeks ago. I'm the one who warned Ginny about the raid on your DA meeting. I'm the one who helped get Lovegood out of the dungeons. Neville's wand wavered slightly. Luna? That was you? It was both of us, Ginny confirmed. Draco got her out, and I created the diversion. We've been hiding her together. Luna's alive. Relief washed over Neville's face. Where is she? We thought they'd sent her to Azkaban, or worse, she's safe, Ginny assured him. I'll take you to her, but you have to promise not to tell anyone about Draco. Not yet. Neville looked between them, suspicion still evident in his scarred face. You actually trust him? After everything he's done? Yes, Ginny said firmly, reaching back to take Draco's hand. I do. Neville lowered his wand slightly, though he kept it ready. Prove it. Tell me something only someone helping us would know. Draco didn't hesitate. The Carrows are bringing in Dementors next week. They'll be patrolling the grounds, but not inside the castle. They're planning to use them on students who get more than 3 detentions. And they've got a list of DA members they suspect. You're at the top, followed by Finnegan, Weasley, Thomas, and the Patil twins. Dean's not even here, Neville said. He's on the run. They don't know that, Draco replied. They think he's hiding somewhere in the castle. They search the room of requirement every few days looking for him and other fugitives. Neville's wand lowered further, uncertainty replacing anger. Why? Why are you helping us? Draco glanced at Ginny, then back to Neville. Because what they're doing is wrong. Because I don't want to be part of it anymore. And because. He squeezed Ginny's hand, some things are worth changing sides for. A long, tense silence followed. Ginny held her breath, watching Neville wrestle with his suspicions and the evidence before him. Finally, Neville sighed, lowering his wand completely. If Ginny trusts you, and if you really helped Luna, I guess I can give you a chance. Thank you, Draco said, sounding genuinely grateful. But I'm watching you, Malfoy, Neville warned. One wrong move, one hint that you're playing us, and I'll make you regret it. Fair enough, Draco nodded. Now, Neville turned to Ginny, take me to Luna. The reunion between Neville and Luna was touching. The dreamy Ravenclaw floated into his arms as if they'd been separated for years rather than weeks, while Neville held her with a gentleness that made Ginny smile. The Nargles said you'd come, Luna informed him serenely. They've been quite chatty lately. I've been worried sick, Neville said, checking her over for injuries. Are you okay? Have they been treating you all right? Oh yes, Ginny brings me pudding, and Draco found me some books about magical creatures, Luna replied. Though it does get rather lonely. The mirror doesn't talk back very much. Neville glanced at Draco, who stood awkwardly by the door. You really have been helping her. Draco shrugged uncomfortably. Lovegood doesn't deserve what they were going to do to her. None of us do, Neville said pointedly. No, Draco agreed, meeting his eyes. You don't. Something passed between the two boys, not friendship, certainly, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. So what's the plan? Neville asked, turning back to Ginny. We can't keep Luna hidden here forever. Christmas holidays are coming up, Ginny said. I've been thinking, maybe we can get her out of the castle then, when there are fewer people around to notice. To where? Neville frowned. Her father's been publishing pro-Potter articles. Their house is probably watched. My house is under the Fidelius charm, Ginny said. She could stay with us. They'll be watching who leaves on the train, Draco pointed out. The Carrows check everyone against their list. So we don't use the train, Neville suggested. What about the passage to Hogsmeade? The one behind the one-eyed witch? Sealed, Draco said. All the known passages are either sealed or guarded now. There has to be a way, Ginny insisted. We can't just leave her here. Actually, Luna interjected dreamily, I've been thinking about the room of requirement. It becomes what the seeker needs, doesn't it? What if someone needed a passage out of Hogwarts that no one else knew about? The three of them stared at her. Luna, you're brilliant. Ginny exclaimed. It's worth a try, Neville agreed. The room of requirement is being watched, Draco reminded them. The Carrows check it regularly. But they don't know how it works, not really, Ginny countered. They probably just ask it to reveal hidden students. If we're careful about how we phrase our request. It could work, Draco admitted. But it's still risky. Everything's risky these days, Neville said grimly. They spent the next hour planning, with Draco providing insights into the Carrows' patrol schedules and security measures. Despite their history, Neville and Draco worked together surprisingly well, their shared goal overriding years of animosity. As they prepared to leave, Neville staying behind to keep Luna company for a while, Draco pulled Ginny aside. You know this changes everything, he said quietly. Longbottom knowing about us. He won't tell anyone, Ginny assured him. Not if I ask him not to. It's not just that. Draco ran a hand through his hair. Once people start finding out, it's only a matter of time before word gets back to the wrong ears. My father, the other Death Eaters, are you ashamed of me? Ginny challenged, though she kept her voice light. What? No. Draco looked genuinely shocked. Never. I'm afraid for you. What they might do to you if they find out. The concern in his eyes touched her. I'm not exactly safe anyway, Draco. Blood traitor, Weasley, known Potter supporter, I'm already on their list. This would make it worse, he insisted. Much worse. I'm not going to hide what I feel for you, Ginny said firmly. Not from my friends, at least. I've been lying to them for weeks, and it feels wrong. Draco sighed, pulling her closer. Just be careful who you tell, okay? For both our sakes. I will, she promised, leaning up to kiss him softly. Now, I'd better get back to Gryffindor Tower before curfew. Another detention with the Carrows is the last thing I need. I'll walk you part way, Draco offered, taking her hand. They left the hidden room, making sure the mirror sealed properly behind them, and headed toward Gryffindor Tower. They were so engrossed in their conversation that they didn't notice the figure watching from the shadows until it was too late. Well, well. What have we here? They froze, hands still clasped together, as Alecto Carrow stepped into the corridor before them, a malicious smile spreading across her face. A blood traitor and a disappointment, she said, eyeing their joined hands with disgust. How touching. Draco immediately pushed Ginny behind him, facing Carrow with a carefully blank expression. Professor. We were just, oh, I can see exactly what you were, just, doing, Malfoy, Carrow sneered. Wait until your father hears about this. His son, the last of the Malfoy line, sullying himself with a blood traitor Weasley. Ginny felt Draco stiffen but kept silent, mind racing for a way out of this disaster. I was interrogating her, Draco said coldly. About Potter's whereabouts. She knows more than she's saying. Carrow eyes narrowed. Holding hands. Is that your interrogation technique? It's called gaining trust, Draco replied smoothly. Something you might try if you actually want information instead of just inflicting pain. A dangerous smile curved Carol's lips. A convenient explanation. But I know what I saw, Malfoy. And the Dark Lord will be very interested to hear about your methods. The Dark Lord instructed me to use whatever means necessary to locate Potter, Draco countered. If you interfere with my assignment, perhaps it's your loyalty he should question. Doubt flickered across Carol's face, but only briefly. Nice try. But I think I'll just take the Weasley girl for some questioning of my own. See what she has to say about your relationship. She raised her wand, but Draco was faster. Expelliarmus, he shouted, catching Carol's wand as it flew from her hand. The Death Eater's face contorted with rage. You dare attack a professor? The Dark Lord will hear of this betrayal, Malfoy. Stupefy. Ginny cried, sending a jet of red light straight at Carol's chest. The woman collapsed, unconscious. Draco stared at the fallen Death Eater, the full implications of what they'd done sinking in. We're dead, he said flatly. When she wakes up, obliviate, Ginny cast quickly, pointing her wand at Carol's head. I'm erasing the last 5 minutes. She'll remember patrolling, but not seeing us. Draco looked impressed. Where did you learn that? Hermione taught me, just in case, Ginny explained, finishing the spell. It's not perfect, if someone skilled really looks into her memories, they might notice the gap, but it should work for now. We need to get out of here before she wakes up, Draco urged, pulling Ginny away. And we need to talk about what just happened. They ran down the corridor, not stopping until they'd put several floors between themselves and the stunned Carol. Finally, in a secluded window alcove, they paused to catch their breath. That was too close, Ginny gasped. It's going to get worse, Draco said grimly. She might not remember seeing us, but she'll know something happened. They'll increase security, watch us all more closely. What do we do? Draco took her hands, his expression serious. Be more careful. Meet less often. Maybe cool things off until after the holidays. No, Ginny said fiercely. I'm not letting them dictate who I can care about. This isn't about us anymore, Draco argued. It's about keeping you safe. Keeping Luna safe. If they catch us again, if they find out I've been helping you, then we'll deal with it, Ginny insisted. Together. Draco's expression softened. He reached up to tuck a strand of her red hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. You Gryffindors and your reckless courage. You love it, she teased. I love you, he corrected, the words still new enough to send a thrill through her. Which is why I can't bear the thought of you getting hurt because of me. And I love you, Ginny replied, which is why I'm not walking away, no matter how dangerous it gets. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as if afraid she might disappear. We need a better plan. For all of us, you, me, Lovegood, Longbottom, the DA. If things go wrong. They won't, Ginny said with more confidence than she felt. But if they do, Draco persisted, we need an escape route. Somewhere to go, someone to contact. Bill and Fleur, Ginny said suddenly. Shell Cottage. It's under the Fidelius charm too, and they're already hiding people who need sanctuary. Can you contact them without the message being intercepted? Ginny thought for a moment. Fred and George. They have ways of communicating that the Ministry doesn't know about. I can get a message to them on the Hogwarts Express, and they can relay it to Bill. Draco nodded, relieved to have at least the outline of a contingency plan. Good. That's good. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, a promise in the midst of danger. I should go, he said reluctantly. If I'm missing when Carol wakes up, it'll look suspicious. Be careful, Ginny urged, holding on to his hand until the last possible moment. Always, he promised, then slipped away into the shadows of the corridor. Ginny watched him go, heart heavy with the knowledge that their secret was becoming increasingly dangerous to keep. Yet the alternative, giving up on what they'd found together, was unthinkable. In the space of a few short months, Draco Malfoy had gone from enemy to ally to the person she trusted most in this broken, war-torn world. Love had bloomed in the most unlikely soil, growing stronger with each shared risk, each moment of vulnerability. She made her way back to Gryffindor Tower, mind already working on plans for Luna's escape, for protecting the DA, for keeping her forbidden romance alive despite the mounting dangers. One thing was certain, nothing about loving Draco Malfoy would be easy. But then, the things most worth fighting for rarely were. "You're mental," Seamus Finnegan declared when Neville and Ginny finally told the core DA members about Draco's involvement in Luna's rescue. "Absolutely mental. Trusting Malfoy? He's playing you, has to be." They'd gathered in the room of requirement, which had transformed itself into a smaller, cozier version of their usual meeting space, just enough room for the 7 of them currently present. "He's not," Ginny insisted. "He's been helping us for weeks. The information he's given us has kept us one step ahead of the Carrows." "And he really helped rescue Luna?" Parvati Patil asked, looking thoughtful. "I saw Luna myself," Neville confirmed. "She's safe, and Malfoy's the one who got her out of the dungeons." "But he's a Death Eater," Lavender Brown protested. "We've all seen his dark mark." "He didn't have a choice about that," Ginny said defensively. "Voldemort threatened his family." Everyone flinched at the name except Neville. "Look," Neville said, stepping forward, "I didn't trust him either." "Still don't entirely. But the fact is, he's risking his life to help us. That counts for something." "Since when are you Team Malfoy?" Seamus demanded. "He's tormented you for years." "I haven't forgotten," Neville said grimly. "But this isn't about me, or what Malfoy did in the past. It's about surviving now, and he can help us do that." "There's more," Ginny said, taking a deep breath. "Draco and we're together." Silence fell over the room, all eyes turning to her in shock. "Together as in?" Lavender began. "As in together," Ginny confirmed. "Romantically." "Bloody hell," Seamus muttered. "You're dating Draco Malfoy? Have you lost your mind?" "It's not about houses or family names anymore," Ginny said firmly. "It's about who's willing to stand against the darkness. And Draco is." "What about Harry?" Parvati asked gently. Ginny sighed. "Harry broke up with me before he left. I'll always care about him, but things change. People change. Malfoy most of all, apparently," Seamus said skeptically. "I'm not asking you to trust him right away," Ginny said. "Just, give him a chance to prove himself. Let him help us." A murmur of discussion broke out among the DA members, opinions clearly divided. "I think you're mad," Seamus said finally, "but if Neville's willing to give him a shot, I guess I can too." "Provisionally." The others gradually nodded their reluctant agreement. "Thank you," Ginny said, relieved. "Now, we need to talk about getting Luna out of the castle during Christmas holidays." The meeting continued, the initial shock of Ginny's revelation giving way to practical planning. By the end, they had a tentative plan for using the Room of Requirement to create an escape passage, with Draco providing intelligence on the Carrows' movements. As they dispersed in pairs to avoid suspicion, Neville held Ginny back. "You're sure about this?" he asked quietly. "About Malfoy?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "I know it's hard to believe, but he's changed, Neville. Not completely, he's still sarcastic and proud and infuriating sometimes, but his heart is in the right place now." Neville studied her face. "You really do love him, don't you?" "I do," Ginny admitted. "Believe me, no one's more surprised about that than I am." Neville smiled slightly. "Well, if anyone can handle Draco Malfoy, it's you, Ginny Weasley." "Thanks, Neville. That means a lot." As she made her way back to Gryffindor Tower, Ginny felt lighter than she had in weeks. Her friends knew the truth now, about Luna, about Draco, about everything. No more secrets, at least not from those she trusted most. The danger was still very real. The Carrows were growing more brutal by the day. Snape watched the castle with his cold, calculating eyes, and somewhere out there, Voldemort's power continued to grow unchecked. But for the first time since Harry, Ron, and Hermione had left, Ginny felt real hope. They were building something here, a resistance, yes, but also bridges across ancient divides. If a Weasley and a Malfoy could find love in the midst of war, perhaps anything was possible. Including, just maybe, winning this war. Christmas holidays approached with a palpable sense of urgency. The plan to get Luna safely out of Hogwarts had been refined, with Draco providing crucial information about security measures and patrol schedules. The Carrows will be doing final checks of all students boarding the train, he explained during a clandestine DA meeting 2 nights before departure. They have a special list of students they're watching most closely. Let me guess, we're all on it. Seamus said dryly. Draco nodded. Along with about 20 others they suspect of DA involvement. Relations between Draco and the DA members remained tense but professional. Most had accepted Ginny's vouching for him, though trust was still a work in progress. What about the room of requirement? Neville asked. Any luck with finding a passage out? Luna and I have been testing different requests, Ginny replied. We think we've found something that works, a tunnel that leads to the Hog's Head in Hogsmeade. The barman there is sympathetic to our cause, Draco added. I overheard the Carrows complaining about him refusing to cooperate with Death Eater patrols. So the plan is to get Luna through this passage while everyone's distracted with boarding the train? Parvati clarified. Exactly, Ginny confirmed. Draco and I will create a diversion near the entrance hall. Meanwhile, Neville will escort Luna to the room of requirement and through the passage. The barman, Aberforth, will help her apparate to Shell Cottage once she's clear of Hogwarts wards. What kind of diversion are we talking about? Seamus asked, a gleam of interest in his eyes. Ginny grinned. Something appropriately festive. Fred and George sent me some special Christmas-themed fireworks. They're designed to target anyone wearing the dark mark. All eyes turned to Draco, who stiffened slightly. It won't work on me, he said. I've been treating the mark with a potion that masks its magical signature. Something I developed myself. Impressed murmurs circulated among the DA members. That's actually brilliant, Parvati said. Draco looked uncomfortable with the praise. Just self-preservation. Still, Neville acknowledged, it's good thinking. So that's the plan, Ginny concluded. Any questions? What about after holidays? Lavender asked. Won't the Carrows notice Luna's still missing? We'll deal with that when we get back, Ginny said. One problem at a time. As the meeting broke up, Draco drew Ginny aside. Meet me in our usual place in an hour. She nodded, heart skipping at the thought of some time alone together. Their moments had become precious and rare since Carrow's near discovery of their relationship. An hour later, they sat side by side on the window seat of their abandoned classroom, looking out at the snow-covered grounds. Draco had his arm around her shoulders, her head resting against him. I have something for you, he said suddenly, reaching into his pocket. An early Christmas present. Draco, you didn't have to, I wanted to, he interrupted, placing a small box in her hand. Something to remember me by during the holidays. Ginny opened it carefully. Inside lay a delicate silver chain with a pendant, a miniature crystal vial containing what appeared to be swirling silver blue light. It's beautiful, she breathed. What is it? A memory, Draco said softly. Our first kiss. I extracted it and preserved it, a spell my mother taught me years ago. Ginny touched the vial gently, watching the silvery substance swirl. I've never seen anything like it. It's not quite a pensive memory, Draco explained. More like an emotional impression. If you hold it and think about that moment, you'll feel what I felt. Curiosity piqued, Ginny closed her hand around the pendant and concentrated. Immediately, a flood of emotions washed over her, nervousness, hope, wonder, and beneath it all, a deep, fierce joy. Draco's feelings during their first kiss. "Oh," she whispered, opening her eyes to find him watching her anxiously. That's how you felt?" He nodded, a faint flush coloring his pale cheeks. "Is it too much?" "I wasn't sure if," Ginny cut him off with a kiss, pouring into it everything she couldn't express in words. When they broke apart, both were breathless. "I love it," she said. "And I love you." Draco smiled, helping her fasten the necklace around her neck. "Keep it hidden," he advised. "It's not dark magic, but it's unusual enough to raise questions." "I'll be careful," she promised, tucking the pendant beneath her jumper. "I wish I had something for you." "You've given me more than enough already," he said seriously. "A reason to fight. A reason to hope. Before you. I was just going through the motions, trying to survive until the next day." "And now?" Ginny asked, lacing her fingers through his. "Now I'm actually living," Draco said simply. "For the first time in years." They spent the next hour planning for the holiday diversion and Luna's escape, then simply talking about their hopes for after the war, dreams that seemed impossible but that neither could help imagining. "We could go somewhere," Draco suggested. "After it's all over. Just disappear for a while, away from everyone who would judge us." "Where would we go?" Ginny asked, allowing herself to indulge in the fantasy. "France, maybe. My family has a cottage in the countryside. Or America, I've always wanted to see New York." "I've never been outside Britain," Ginny admitted. "Except Egypt once, when my dad won a prize from the Daily Prophet." "Then I'll take you everywhere," Draco promised. "Every place worth seeing." They both knew these were dreams that might never come true, but in the darkening classroom, with snow falling gently outside the window, anything seemed possible. Finally, reluctantly, they said their goodbyes. The next time they'd see each other would be during the diversion before the train departed. "Be careful," Draco said, holding her close for one last embrace. "If anything seems wrong, abort the plan. Luna's safety isn't worth your life." "It'll work," Ginny assured him. "We've planned for everything." "Just promise me you'll be careful," he insisted. "I promise," she said, kissing him one more time. "You too." As she made her way back to Gryffindor Tower, Ginny's hand kept drifting to the pendant hidden beneath her clothes, feeling the comforting warmth of the memory it contained. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever the future held, she had this moment preserved forever, proof that even in the darkest times, love could bloom in the most unexpected places. The morning of departure dawned clear and cold. Students bustled through the corridors with trunks and owl cages, eager to escape Hogwarts for the relative safety of home. The Carrows prowled among them, checking names against their lists, occasionally pulling students aside for special screening. Ginny met Neville in the common room, both of them carrying packed trunks to maintain the illusion they were leaving. "Ready?" she asked quietly. He nodded, face set with determination. "Luna's waiting in our meeting spot. I'll get her to the room of requirement once your diversion starts." "Be careful," Ginny warned. "The Carrows are on high alert today." "You too." Neville squeezed her shoulder. "See you on the other side." They headed down to the entrance hall together, joining the crowd of departing students. Ginny spotted Draco across the room, standing with a group of Slytherins but slightly apart, his eyes finding hers briefly before moving away. Alecto Carrow stood by the main doors, checking off names, while her brother Amicus patrolled the perimeter of the hall, eyes narrowed with suspicion. Snape was there too, his black robes billowing as he moved among the students, silent and watchful. The tension in the air was palpable. Ginny clutched the special fireworks in her pocket, waiting for just the right moment. "Weasley," Alecto called, beckoning Ginny forward. "Special screening for you." Heart hammering, Ginny approached the Death Eater, aware of Draco tensing across the room. Arms out, Caro ordered. Wand on the table. Ginny complied, allowing Caro to cast a detection spell over her. The fireworks in her pocket were charmed to be undetectable, another of Fred and George's ingenious innovations, but her palms were sweating nonetheless. Clean, Caro said, sounding disappointed. Move along. Next. Ginny retrieved her wand and moved toward the doors, positioning herself strategically near an alcove that would provide cover. She caught Neville's eye across the hall and gave an imperceptible nod. Now. She slipped the fireworks from her pocket and whispered the activation phrase, "Mischief managed." The effect was instantaneous and spectacular. Dozens of miniature red and green rockets shot into the air, exploding into dazzling Christmas scenes, Santa Claus on his sleigh, reindeer leaping through the air, snowmen that danced and twirled. Students gasped and pointed, momentarily distracted by the beautiful display. Then the second phase began. The festive images suddenly converged, transforming into fiery phoenixes that swooped down on the Caros and other known Death Eaters among the staff. The phoenixes circled their targets, singing a hauntingly beautiful song that somehow conveyed the message, Dumbledore's army, still fighting. Chaos erupted. Students scattered, some cheering, others running for cover. The Caros fired spells at the phoenixes, which only caused them to multiply and attack more aggressively. Amid the confusion, Ginny saw Neville slip away through a side passage. Phase 1 complete. Now came the tricky part. She needed to create enough sustained chaos to give Neville and Luna time to reach the room of requirement and escape through the passage. Who is responsible for this? Alecto, Caro shrieked, batting away a particularly persistent phoenix. Snape stood in the center of the hall, wand raised but not casting, his black eyes scanning the crowd. For a moment, his gaze locked with Ginny's, and she could have sworn something like understanding passed between them. Then everything went wrong. It was Weasley, a voice shouted. I saw her release them. Pansy Parkinson was pointing directly at Ginny, a malicious smile on her face. Amicus Caro turned, his face contorted with rage. Get her. Ginny ran, ducking spells and weaving through panicking students. She needed to lead them away from Neville and Luna's escape route, to buy them more time. A hand grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a pillar. Draco. Change of plan, he said urgently. They know it was you. We need to get you out too. I can't abandon the others, Ginny, listen to me, Draco interrupted, his gray eyes intense. If they catch you, they'll use Veritaserum. They'll find out everything, about us, about Luna, about the DA. The gravity of the situation hit her. He was right. If captured, she couldn't guarantee she'd be able to keep their secrets. What do we do? She asked. Room of requirement. Now. You'll go with Lovegood. What about you? Draco's face was grim. I'll create another diversion. Make them think you went toward the dungeons. No, Ginny protested. That's too dangerous, go, he insisted, pushing her toward a hidden passageway. Third floor corridor, quickly. I'll find you later. Promise me, she demanded, grabbing his robes. Promise you'll be careful. I promise, he said, then kissed her quickly. Now go. Ginny ran, taking the hidden passages she knew would avoid the main corridors. Behind her, she heard new commotion erupting, Draco's diversion in action. She reached the third floor, breathless and terrified, and sprinted toward the room of requirement. Neville was waiting outside, pacing anxiously. Ginny. What happened? Where's Malfoy? Change of plan, she gasped. I've been identified. Need to go with Luna. Neville's eyes widened. But your family, they're expecting you on the train, I'll send word somehow, Ginny said. No time. We have to go now. The door to the room of requirement materialized, and they hurried inside. The room had transformed into a small stone chamber with a single portrait on the far wall, an arched tunnel leading away from Hogwarts. Luna sat cross-legged on the floor, humming quietly to herself. She looked up as they entered, her protuberant eyes widening slightly. "Oh, hello Ginny. Are you coming with us too? The Nargle suggested you might." "Last-minute change of plans," Ginny said, trying to catch her breath. "The Carrows know I set off the fireworks." "Where's Draco?" Luna asked, looking past them to the door. "Creating another diversion," Ginny said, worry gnawing at her. "He'll meet up with us later." Even as she said it, she wasn't sure she believed it. The risks Draco was taking. "We need to go," Neville urged. "The passage is ready." He helped Luna to her feet, then turned to the portrait, which now showed a dark tunnel. "This leads directly to the Hog's Head. Aberforth is expecting you." "You're not coming?" Ginny asked. Neville shook his head. "Someone has to stay and lead the DA. If both of us disappear, they'll disband completely." Ginny hugged him fiercely. "Be careful, Neville. Don't take unnecessary risks." "Says the girl who just set off fireworks in front of the Carrows," he replied with a small smile. "Go on. I'll tell your family what happened, well, a version of it, anyway." "Tell them I'm safe," Ginny said. "Tell them." She hesitated, unsure how to explain everything, especially about Draco. "I'll take care of it," Neville assured her. "Now go, before they figure out where you are." Ginny turned to the portrait, which had swung open to reveal the entrance to the tunnel. Luna stepped through first, her silvery blonde hair disappearing into the darkness. At the last moment, Ginny turned back. "Wait for Draco," she told Neville urgently. "Make sure he knows where I've gone. Tell him." She touched the pendant beneath her robes, "Tell him I'll be waiting." Neville nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I will. Now go." Ginny climbed into the tunnel, the portrait swinging shut behind her. Darkness enveloped her, broken only by the soft glow of Luna's wand ahead. "Lumos," she whispered, her own wand tip igniting. "This is quite exciting, isn't it?" Luna commented as they made their way down the rough-hewn passage. "Like one of those adventure books my father used to read me." Despite everything, Ginny smiled. "Trust Luna to find wonder even in a desperate escape." "Let's just hope it has a happy ending," she replied, thoughts turning to Draco, still in the castle, risking everything for her safety. The tunnel stretched ahead, leading away from Hogwarts, away from the boy who had unexpectedly captured her heart. As they walked, Ginny's hand closed around the memory pendant, drawing strength from the emotions preserved within. Whatever came next, whatever dangers awaited, she would face them. And somehow, someday, she would find her way back to Draco Malfoy. Their forbidden romance had become something more, a rebellion against hatred, a declaration that love could transcend the divisions of house and family and war. And for that, Ginny would fight with everything she had. Chapter 3, Choosing Sides. Shell Cottage was nothing like Ginny expected. Perched on the edge of a cliff overlooking the churning sea, the small whitewashed building seemed to grow out of the rocky landscape itself, shells embedded in its walls catching the winter sunlight. It felt miles away from the terror of Hogwarts, though Ginny knew that distance was just an illusion. "Welcome to Shell Cottage," Bill said, ushering Ginny and Luna inside. His scarred face was grim but his eyes softened with relief at seeing his sister safe. Fleur's making tea. The interior was cozy and warm, with mismatched furniture and the smell of fresh bread hanging in the air. Fleur bustled forward, enveloping first Luna then Ginny in tight hugs. "Thank goodness you are safe," she said, her French accent more pronounced with emotion. "We were so worried when Aberforth sent word you were coming." "Is Dad here?" "Mum?" Ginny asked, looking around the small cottage. Bill's expression tightened. "No. They're still at Aunt Muriel's with the others. It's safer if they don't know you're here right now." "What? Why?" Ginny demanded. They must be frantic. I sent word you're safe, Bill assured her. But the less they know about where you are, the better. Death Eaters have been questioning family members of known Order supporters. If they got to Mom or Dad, they couldn't reveal what they don't know, Ginny finished, understanding dawning. But I can't just disappear without explanation. It's only temporary, Bill said. Until we figure out our next move. Luna had wandered to the window, gazing out at the crashing waves below. The salt air keeps away Raxperts, she observed serenely. Though it does attract dabberblimps. Despite everything, Ginny smiled. Luna's unshakable Lunaness was oddly comforting in these uncertain times. Come, Fleur said, leading them to the kitchen table where steaming mugs of tea waited. Sit and tell us everything. Ginny hesitated, her hand unconsciously going to the memory pendant hidden beneath her jumper. How much should she tell them? About Draco, about their relationship, about everything that had happened at Hogwarts. It's a long story, she said finally. We have time, Bill replied, his scarred face gentle but insistent. So Ginny told them, about the Carrow's reign of terror, about Dumbledore's army's resistance, about Luna's capture and rescue. But when it came to Draco's role, she faltered. We had help, she said carefully. Someone on the inside. Bill leaned forward, instantly alert. Who? Ginny took a deep breath. Draco Malfoy. The silence that followed was deafening. Bill's face went completely still, his scars standing out in stark relief. Fleur's eyes widened, her delicate eyebrows shooting up. Malfoy? Bill finally said, incredulity in every syllable. Lucius Malfoy's son. Yes, Ginny confirmed, straightening her spine. He's been helping the DA for months. He's the one who got Luna out of the dungeons. He's the reason we escaped today. It's true, Luna added dreamily. He brought me pudding when I was hiding. And books about Nifflers. Bill exchanged a look with Fleur, clearly struggling to process this information. Ginny, he said slowly, are you sure this isn't some kind of trap? The Malfoys are deep in you-know-who's inner circle. I'm sure, Ginny said firmly. Draco's not like his father. He's... She hesitated, then decided to simply rip off the bandage. He's changed. And I love him. The teacup in Bill's hand crashed to the table, spilling everywhere. Fleur muttered something in French that sounded distinctly like a curse. You what? Bill exploded, rising to his feet. I love him, Ginny repeated, refusing to back down. And he loves me. This is insane, Bill ran a hand through his long hair. You can't be serious, Ginny. He's a Malfoy. His father nearly got you killed with that diary. His aunt tortured Hermione. He's not his father or his aunt, Ginny said hotly. Just like I'm not Percy, or you, or anyone else in our family. He's himself, and he's risking everything to help us. Where is he now? Fleur asked quietly, placing a restraining hand on Bill's arm. Ginny's heart clenched with worry. Still at Hogwarts. He created a diversion so Luna and I could escape. He promised he'd find a way to contact us. If he survived, Bill muttered. Ginny felt like she'd been slapped. He's alive, she insisted, though the worry gnawing at her insides grew sharper. He has to be. I'm sorry, Ginny, Bill said, his tone softening at the distress on his sister's face. But you have to understand how this sounds. Draco Malfoy, son of one of you-know-who's top lieutenants, suddenly switching sides and falling in love with a Weasley. It's the truth, Ginny cut him off. Whether you believe it or not. Luna, who had been watching the exchange with her typical dreamy detachment, suddenly spoke up. Love often emerges in the strangest circumstances, she said softly. Like fire lilies that only bloom after a forest fire. The Nargles told me Draco and Ginny were meant to find each other. Bill looked at Luna as if she'd grown a second head, but Fleur's expression had softened. Perhaps, she said carefully, we should wait and see. If this Draco truly helped you escape, then we owe him the benefit of doubt, non. Thank you, Fleur, Ginny said gratefully. Bill sighed heavily. Get some rest, both of you. We'll talk more later. Your room is upstairs, first door on the right. As they climbed the narrow staircase, Luna turned to Ginny. Your brother doesn't believe us, she observed matter-of-factly. Not yet, Ginny agreed. But he will. When Draco gets here, if, Luna corrected gently. Ginny stopped on the stairs, turning to her friend. What do you mean? You don't think he'll come? Luna's protuberant eyes were unusually focused. I think Draco Malfoy is at a crossroads, Ginny. The path he chooses now will define him forever. She paused, her dreamy expression returning. But the Raxperts around you have a very distinctive mating pattern. I believe he'll find his way to you eventually. With that cryptic pronouncement, Luna continued up the stairs, leaving Ginny to puzzle over her words. As strange as Luna's statements often were, Ginny had learned never to dismiss them entirely. Luna saw things others missed. In the small bedroom, 2 narrow beds had been prepared. Luna immediately began unpacking her meager possessions, the few books and items Ginny had smuggled to her during her hiding. You should try to contact him, Luna suggested, arranging a collection of butterbeer corks on the windowsill. The DA coins perhaps. Ginny shook her head. Too risky. If the Carrows caught him with it. She sat on the edge of the bed, fingering the memory pendant beneath her jumper. Closing her eyes, she concentrated on the emotions preserved inside, Draco's feelings during their first kiss. The rush of hope, wonder, and joy washed over her, but now tinged with her own fear and longing. Please be safe, she whispered. Please find your way to me. Days passed with agonizing slowness. Ginny and Luna settled into life at Shell Cottage, helping Fleur with cooking and cleaning, walking along the windswept beach, waiting for news, any news, from Hogwarts. Bill remained skeptical about Draco but had agreed not to tell the rest of the family about Ginny's relationship with him, at least not yet. That's something you need to do yourself, he'd said. When the time is right. A week after their arrival, they received their first visitors, Fred and George, who appeared with a loud crack on the front doorstep, bringing supplies, news, and their irrepressible humor. There's our little fugitive. Fred exclaimed, scooping Ginny into a bone-crushing hug. Giving the Carrows hell, just like we taught you, George added proudly, musing her hair. Ginny felt tears pricking her eyes. She hadn't realized how much she'd missed her brothers until that moment. How's everyone? Mum and Dad? Ron? She asked urgently. All fine, Fred assured her. Mum's going mental with worry about you, of course, but Bill's message that you're safe helped. And Ron? Ginny pressed. Have you heard anything? The twins exchanged glances. Nothing specific, George said. But there have been sightings, rumors. They're still out there, still fighting. They settled in the kitchen, Fred and George unpacking an assortment of products from Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, including some new defensive items they developed specifically for the Resistance. Shield hats are selling faster than we can make them, George explained. And these, he held up what looked like ordinary wristwatches, are warning watches. They heat up when someone with harmful intentions comes within 20 feet. Brilliant, Ginny said, examining one. We've also improved the communication capabilities of the DA coins, Fred added, pulling out a familiar golden galleon. Made them harder to trace, added stronger protections. Neville's been using the new versions at Hogwarts. Ginny's heart jumped. Have you heard from Neville? What's happening at Hogwarts? Again, that glance between the twins. It's bad, Gin, Fred said soberly. After you and Luna escaped, the Carrows went on a rampage. Doubled the guards, increased punishments. Neville's had to go into permanent hiding in the Room of Requirement. Ginny felt sick. And, any word about others? Anyone specific? She couldn't bring herself to ask about Draco directly, not yet, not before she'd had a chance to explain everything to her brothers. Depends who you're asking about, George said, a curious edge to his voice. According to Neville, your friend Malfoy disappeared the same day you did. Ginny's head snapped up. What do you mean, disappeared? Vanished, Fred elaborated. After creating quite the diversion, apparently. Neville was quite keen to tell us about Malfoy's heroic actions. His tone made air quotes unnecessary. Ginny shot a panicked look at Bill, who gave a small shrug as if to say, I didn't tell them. Something you want to share with us, little sister? George asked, his expression uncharacteristically serious. Taking a deep breath, Ginny told them everything, from her detention with Draco to their growing friendship, from his help rescuing Luna to their eventual romance. She left nothing out, watching their faces morph from disbelief to shock to something harder to define. When she finished, silence reigned in the small kitchen. Even Luna had stopped arranging shells to listen. So, Fred said finally, you're telling us you're in love with Draco Malfoy. The same ferret who's tormented our family for years. The same one who called Hermione a mudblood, George added. The same one whose father gave you that cursed diary, Fred continued. Yes, Ginny said simply. That Draco Malfoy. Except he's not that person anymore. He's changed, grown up, seen the reality of what Voldemort really is. Both twins flinched at the name. And now he's missing, George said skeptically. Not missing, Ginny insisted. He's trying to find his way here. He promised. The twins exchanged another of their silent communications. Look, Ginny, Fred said gently, even if everything you've said is true, and that's a mighty big if, you have to consider the possibility that he got caught. Or that he changed his mind. He wouldn't, Ginny said fiercely. You didn't see him, you don't know what he risked for us. And if he does show up, George asked, what then? You think the rest of the family's going to welcome Lucius Malfoy's son with open arms? That Harry will understand you falling for his school nemesis while he's out there risking his life? I don't expect it to be easy, Ginny admitted. But Draco deserves a chance to prove himself. Just like Percy does, after everything. That hit home. The twins fell silent, the mention of their estranged brother clearly striking a nerve. We just don't want to see you hurt, Gin, Fred said finally. I know, she said, reaching out to squeeze his hand. But I need you to trust me on this. Draco is worth it. We'll reserve judgment until we meet this new, improved Malfoy, George said, not unkindly. But don't expect us to break out the welcome banners right away. Fair enough, Ginny smiled weakly. Just, don't tell Mum and Dad yet, okay? I need to do that myself, when the time is right. Your secret's safe with us, Fred promised. Though I'd pay good galleons to see Dad's face when you tell him, George added with a ghost of his usual mischief. After the twins left, Ginny retreated to the cliff's edge, watching waves crash against the rocks below. The gray, turbulent sea reminded her of Draco's eyes, stormy yet somehow calming in their intensity. Where was he? Was he safe? Had he been caught, or worse? The questions tormented her day and night. He's alive, Luna said, appearing beside her with that uncanny silent movement she sometimes managed. I can feel it. How can you be sure? Ginny asked, desperate for reassurance. The gulls told me, Luna replied simply, looking at the birds wheeling overhead. They see much that we don't. Ginny smiled despite herself. Luna's certainty, however bizarrely sourced, was comforting. I just wish I knew where he was, she sighed. Finding his way, Luna said. Some journeys take longer than others, especially when you're traveling against the current. With that cryptic statement, she wandered back toward the cottage, leaving Ginny to her thoughts. That night, lying in bed, Ginny clutched the memory pendant and whispered into the darkness, I'm waiting, Draco. Please find me. 2 more weeks passed. Christmas came and went, a subdued affair with just Bill, Fleur, Luna, and Ginny exchanging small gifts and trying to maintain some semblance of normality. No word came from Draco, though Ginny refused to give up hope. In early January, their peaceful refuge was shattered by new arrivals, Dean Thomas and a goblin named Griphook, rescued by the mysterious Potterwatch Resistance Network after escaping from Malfoy Manor. Ginny's heart leapt at the mention of Malfoy Manor, and she cornered Dean as soon as she could. "Did you see him?" she asked urgently. "Draco?" Dean looked at her strangely. "Malfoy?" "Yeah, he was there, with his parents. Didn't do much though, just stood there looking sick while the Snatchers processed us." "Why?" Ginny's stomach dropped. "When was this?" 3 days ago, Dean replied. "Ginny, what's going on? Why do you care about Malfoy?" Before she could answer, Bill called everyone to the kitchen for a meeting. Reluctantly, Ginny followed, her mind whirling with this new information. Draco was at his home, with his family. Had he given up on finding her? Had he returned to the Death Eater's fold? No. She refused to believe it. There had to be an explanation. The meeting was brief, Bill updating everyone on the latest news from Potterwatch and the Order, establishing ground rules for their growing safe house. "We'll likely have more refugees," he explained. "Shell Cottage is becoming a key waypoint for those fleeing you-know-who. Everyone needs to help maintain security and supplies." Ginny nodded along with the others, though her thoughts remained with Draco. After the meeting, she slipped outside again, needing space to think. The January air was bitter cold, wind whipping off the sea to cut through her jumper. She cast a warming charm and continued walking along the cliffside path, trying to make sense of Dean's news. A loud crack behind her made her spin around, wand raised. A tall, hooded figure stood 20 paces away, face obscured in shadow. For a wild, hopeful moment, Ginny thought it might be Draco, but the build was wrong, too broad in the shoulders. "Who's there?" she called, keeping her wand steady. The figure pushed back his hood, revealing a shock of red hair and a familiar, freckled face. "Charlie?" Ginny gasped, lowering her wand. Her second oldest brother grinned, opening his arms. "Surprise!" She ran to him, throwing herself into his strong embrace. Charlie lifted her off her feet, spinning her around like he used to when she was small. "What are you doing here?" she demanded when he set her down. "I thought you were still in Romania." "Got word the family needed me," he explained, his weathered face growing serious. "Things are heating up, Jin. The Order's mobilizing everyone." Has something happened?" Fear clutched at her heart. "Nothing specific yet," Charlie assured her. "But we can all feel it, something big is coming. You know who's getting bolder, more public. The final confrontation can't be far off." He slung an arm around her shoulders, leading her back toward the cottage. "Bill tells me you've had quite the adventure at Hogwarts. Leading Dumbledore's army, staging a daring escape." Ginny tensed, wondering what else Bill had told him. "He also mentioned you had help from an unexpected quarter," Charlie continued, his tone carefully neutral. "A Malfoy, of all people." "Bill shouldn't have, he didn't go into details," Charlie interrupted. "Just said you'd formed an alliance with Draco Malfoy. Said I should ask you for the full story." Ginny exhaled slowly. "It's complicated." "I've got time," Charlie said easily. "And an open mind. More open than some of our brothers, I'd wager." That was true. Of all her brothers, Charlie had always been the least judgmental, the most willing to see beyond surface appearances. His work with dragons required looking past the dangerous exterior to understand the creature beneath. So once again, Ginny told her story, the unexpected connection with Draco, the growing trust, the eventual love that had bloomed between them. Charlie listened without interruption, his expression thoughtful rather than shocked or angry. And now he's apparently back at Malfoy Manor, Ginny finished, the worry she'd been holding back spilling into her voice. Dean saw him there days ago. But I don't understand why he'd go back, after everything. Charlie was silent for a long moment, watching the waves break against the cliffs below. People are complicated, Gin, he said finally. Especially in war. Especially when they're caught between worlds. You think he changed his mind, Ginny said flatly. Went back to his family, to you-know-who. I didn't say that, Charlie replied mildly. I think he might be trying to protect them, and you. Being back at the manor doesn't necessarily mean he's abandoned what he believes in. Then why hasn't he contacted me? Ginny demanded. It's been weeks, Charlie. Maybe he can't, Charlie suggested. You-know-who is reportedly using Malfoy Manor as headquarters now. Draco's probably under constant surveillance. Ginny hadn't considered that possibility. You think he's trapped there? It's possible, Charlie nodded. And if he's already under suspicion for helping you escape. He left the sentence unfinished, but Ginny's imagination filled in the horrifying possibilities. If Voldemort suspected Draco of betrayal, of helping blood traders escape. We have to help him, she said urgently, grabbing Charlie's arm. Get him out somehow. Whoa, slow down, Charlie said, placing his hands on her shoulders. Storming Malfoy Manor is suicide, Ginny. It's crawling with Death Eaters, probably protected by every dark spell imaginable. But if he's in danger, then rushing in half-cocked will only put you both in more danger, Charlie said firmly. If Malfoy's as smart as you say he is, he's biding his time, waiting for the right moment. Ginny wanted to argue, but she knew Charlie was right. Charging into Malfoy Manor would accomplish nothing except getting herself killed or captured. I just feel so helpless, she admitted. Sitting here, safe, while he might be suffering. That's war for you, Charlie said grimly. The hardest part is often the waiting. He gave her shoulders a gentle squeeze. For what it's worth, I believe you about Malfoy. People can change, I've seen it happen. And love. He smiled slightly, love can be the most powerful catalyst for change there is. Ginny hugged him, grateful beyond words for his understanding. Thank you, Charlie. That means a lot. Just promise me something, he said, suddenly serious. When the time comes, and it will come, be careful. The Malfoys have been entangled with dark wizards for generations. Breaking away from that won't be easy for Draco, even if he wants to. I know, Ginny said quietly. But he's worth the risk. Charlie studied her face, then nodded. Then I hope I get to meet this new Draco Malfoy someday. He must be something special to have won my little sister's heart. They walked back to the cottage together, Ginny feeling marginally better. Charlie's visit, brief as it was, had given her renewed hope, and a new perspective on Draco's silence. If he was indeed trapped at Malfoy Manor, under Voldemort's watchful eye, then contacting her would put them both in danger. Perhaps his silence was, in its way, an act of love, keeping her safe by keeping his distance. The thought wasn't entirely comforting, but it was better than believing he'd abandoned her, abandoned everything they'd built together. That night, clutching the memory pendant, Ginny whispered, "Stay safe, Draco. I'll be waiting, however long it takes." Life at Shell Cottage fell into a rhythm of waiting and preparation. More refugees came and went, Order members, escaped Muggleborns, even a wand maker named Ollivander who'd been held prisoner at Malfoy Manor. Ginny questioned each of them about Draco, but information was sparse and often contradictory. "Keeps to himself," Ollivander said when asked. "Barely leaves his rooms, from what I could tell. The few times I saw him, he looked haunted." February turned to March, still with no word. Ginny threw herself into training, dueling with Bill and Charlie, who came and went on order business, learning healing spells from Fleur, practicing defensive magic with Luna and Dean. When, the final confrontation came, she would be ready. Then, on a stormy night in late March, everything changed. Ginny was awakened by commotion downstairs, urgent voices, hurried footsteps. Grabbing her wand, she rushed from the bedroom, nearly colliding with Luna in the hallway. "What's happening?" she whispered. Luna's eyes were wide. "I'm not sure, but the air tastes like destiny." Before Ginny could decipher that statement, Bill's voice called up the stairs. "Ginny! Luna! Come down, quickly!" They hurried downstairs to find the small cottage in barely controlled chaos. Bill and Fleur moved purposefully between the kitchen and living room, gathering supplies. Dean and the goblin Griphook stood to one side, watching silently. "What's going on?" Ginny demanded. Bill turned to her, his scarred face taut with tension. "We have visitors coming. Important ones." "Who?" Ginny pressed. Before Bill could answer, a loud crack sounded from outside. He rushed to the door, wand at the ready, peering into the darkness. Whatever he saw made him lower his wand immediately. "Get blankets," he called over his shoulder. "And Dittany. Quickly." Fleur rushed forward with an armful of supplies as the door burst open. Ginny's breath caught in her throat. Ron stood in the doorway, soaking wet and supporting an equally drenched Harry. Behind them came Hermione, helped by a tall figure Ginny didn't recognize at first. Then the figure stepped into the light, pushing wet platinum hair from his face, and Ginny's world stopped. "Draco," she whispered. His head snapped up, gray eyes finding hers instantly. He looked terrible, thinner than she remembered, with dark shadows under his eyes and a new hardness to his features. But he was alive, and he was here. For a moment, everyone else seemed to fade away. There was only Draco, standing in the doorway of Shell Cottage, looking at her as if she were the only real thing in the world. Then reality crashed back as Harry stumbled, nearly falling. Ron and Bill guided him to the sofa while Fleur rushed to examine what appeared to be an injury on his hand. "What happened?" Bill demanded. "How did you, Malfoy Manor?" Ron said grimly, casting a wary glance at Draco. "We were captured, taken there. It was." He swallowed hard. "It was bad." "Dobby," Harry said weakly from the sofa. "Dobby got us out." "Is he?" "I'm sorry, Harry," Hermione said, tears streaming down her face. "He didn't make it." A heavy silence fell over the room. Ginny noticed for the first time that Hermione looked awful, pale, shaking, with an angry red mark on her neck. "Bellatrix," Ron explained, following Ginny's gaze. She tortured Hermione. Wanted information about the sword." Ginny felt sick. Her eyes found Draco again, still standing by the door as if uncertain whether to come further into the room. His expression was haunted, guilt etched into every line of his face. "And you?" Bill said, turning to Draco with undisguised suspicion. "What's your part in this?" It was Harry who answered, surprising everyone. "He helped us escape," he said firmly. "Gave us his wand. Without Malfoy, we'd all be dead." All eyes turned to Draco, who seemed to shrink under the scrutiny. "It wasn't enough," he said quietly, his voice rough as if from disuse. "I should have done more, sooner." "You did what you could," Hermione said unexpectedly. "You stopped them identifying Harry right away. You tried to help without getting yourself killed." Draco looked startled by her defense, then nodded slightly in acknowledgement. The tension in the room was palpable. Ron kept glancing between Draco and Ginny with growing suspicion, clearly noticing something in their locked gazes. Harry seemed confused by the entire exchange, his injured hand temporarily forgotten. "Perhaps," Fleur said diplomatically, "we should get everyone dry and settled before more explanations, Non. There are clean clothes upstairs, and I will make tea." Her suggestion broke the moment. Bill began directing everyone to different rooms, assigning sleeping arrangements. In the commotion, Ginny managed to edge closer to Draco, who still hadn't moved from his spot by the door. You came, she said softly, close enough that only he could hear. His eyes, stormy gray in the dim light, held a mixture of pain and hope. I promised I would. Before she could respond, Ron's voice cut through the room. What's going on with you two? He demanded, looking between Ginny and Draco with growing alarm. Why are you looking at Malfoy like that, Ginny? All conversation ceased. Everyone turned to stare at them, the question hanging in the air like a physical presence. Ginny straightened her spine, moving to stand beside Draco. Because I love him, she said simply. And he loves me. The silence that followed was deafening. Ron's face went from red to white to red again, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Harry looked as though someone had hit him with a stunning spell, while Hermione's eyes widened in shock but not, Ginny thought, in judgment. You what? Ron finally exploded. Have you lost your bloody mind? He's a Malfoy. A Death Eater. Ex-Death Eater, Draco corrected quietly, though his voice carried in the silent room. I made my choice when I gave Potter my wand. There's no going back now. This is insane, Ron continued as if Draco hadn't spoken. Ginny, he's been torturing students at Hogwarts, he let Death Eaters into the school, his family imprisoned us, he's been protecting students, Ginny cut him off. Helping the DA. He rescued Luna from the dungeons. He risked everything to help me escape. It's true, Luna confirmed dreamily. He brought me pudding. Ron turned to Harry, clearly expecting support. Harry, tell her this is mad. But Harry was staring at Draco with an unreadable expression. Is it true? He asked finally. You've been helping them? Helping Ginny? Draco met his gaze steadily. Yes. Why? It was the question everyone wanted answered. Draco seemed to weigh his words carefully before responding. Because I was wrong, he said finally. About everything. Blood status, the Dark Lord, what side I should be on. It took me too long to see it, but once I did. He glanced at Ginny, something softening in his expression, I couldn't unsee it. And Ginny? Harry pressed, his voice strained. How does she fit into this? She saw something in me worth saving, Draco said simply. When no one else did. Not even myself. The raw honesty in his voice seemed to take everyone aback, Harry most of all. I don't expect any of you to understand, Draco continued, addressing the room at large. Or to forgive what I've done. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Not unless Ginny wants me to. He turned to her then, vulnerability clear in his eyes despite his firm tone. Do you want me to go? No, Ginny said fiercely, taking his hand. Never. Ron made a strangled noise of protest, but Bill silenced him with a look. I think, Bill said carefully, that we all need time to process this. It's been a long night, and everyone's exhausted. Let's get some rest, and we can talk more in the morning. But, Ron began. In the morning, Ron, Bill repeated firmly. Reluctantly, everyone dispersed to their assigned rooms. Fleur showed Draco to a small storage room converted hastily into sleeping quarters, while Ginny was directed back to the room she shared with Luna. I need to talk to him, Ginny whispered to Bill. Just for a minute. Bill studied her face, then nodded. 5 minutes. That's all. And leave the door open. Grateful, Ginny slipped into Draco's temporary room. He sat on the edge of a narrow cot, head in his hands, but looked up as she entered. In an instant, they were in each other's arms, holding on as if they might be torn apart at any moment. Ginny buried her face in his chest, inhaling his scent, different now, lacking the expensive cologne she remembered, but still unmistakably him. I thought I'd never see you again, she whispered. His arms tightened around her. I'm so sorry it took so long. The manner was, it wasn't safe to try to reach you. They were watching me constantly. I know, Ginny said, pulling back to look at his face. I understand. He touched her cheek gently, as if afraid she might not be real. I missed you. Every day, every hour. Me too, she said, leaning into his touch. I never gave up hope. He smiled slightly, the first real smile she'd seen from him since his arrival. Stubborn Gryffindor. Complicated Slytherin, she countered, then grew serious. Harry, Ron, Hermione, what happened at the manor? Draco's expression darkened. Snatchers caught them, brought them in. Potter's face was swollen, a stinging hex, I think, but I recognized him immediately. I pretended I wasn't sure. You protected him, Ginny said. Not well enough, Draco said bitterly. My aunt, she tortured Granger. I just stood there, too cowardly to stop it. You would have been killed if you tried, Ginny said firmly. And then you couldn't have helped them escape. Harry said you gave him your wand. Draco nodded. When it all went to hell. Potter disarmed Bellatrix, I threw him my wand, and then that house elf appeared and got them out. I grabbed onto Weasley at the last second, your brother nearly hexed me for it, but Granger stopped him. And now you're here, Ginny said softly. With me. With you, he agreed, pressing his forehead to hers. Though your family might murder me in my sleep. I won't let them, Ginny promised. Besides, Harry seems almost accepting. Potter's always been unpredictable, Draco said with a ghost of his old drawl. Though I suppose saving his life might have helped. It definitely won't hurt, Ginny agreed. She kissed him then, soft and sweet, a reconnection after too long apart. I love you, she whispered against his lips. No matter what happens next. I love you too, he replied, the words still sounding slightly strange in his aristocratic voice, but no less sincere for it. Whatever comes, we face it together. A throat cleared from the doorway. Bill stood there, expression unreadable. Time's up, Ginny. Reluctantly, she pulled away from Draco. We'll talk more tomorrow, she promised him. Get some rest. You too, he said, squeezing her hand one last time before letting go. As she followed Bill into the hallway, she braced herself for a lecture. Instead, he simply asked, Are you sure about this, Ginny? Really sure? More sure than I've ever been about anything, she replied without hesitation. Bill studied her face, then nodded slowly. Then I'll try to keep Ron from murdering him in his sleep. Ginny smiled gratefully. Thanks, Bill. Don't thank me yet, he warned. When Mum and Dad find out. The thought of that inevitable confrontation made Ginny wince, but she squared her shoulders. We'll deal with that when it comes. For now, Draco was here, safe, and on the right side. The rest they would face together, one step at a time. The next morning brought tense conversations and tentative alliances. Harry, Ron, and Hermione disappeared into a room with Griphook the Goblin for hours, clearly planning something they weren't ready to share. When they emerged, Harry pulled Ginny aside. Can we talk? About Malfoy? They walked along the cliff edge, the morning sun casting long shadows across the grass. I don't understand it, Harry said finally. After everything he's done, everything his family's done, how can you love him? Ginny considered her answer carefully. People change, Harry. You know that better than most. Look at Snape, you hated him for years, and now. That's different, Harry argued. Snape was always on Dumbledore's side, secretly. Malfoy was a Death Eater. A reluctant one, Ginny countered. Forced into it by his father's choices and Voldemort's threats. Harry flinched slightly at the name but didn't comment on it. Still, it's Malfoy, he said, as if that explained everything. I know it's hard to understand, Ginny said gently. I didn't plan for this to happen, Harry. It just did. Being at Hogwarts under the Carrows was hell. Draco was going through his own hell too. Somehow, we found each other through it. What about us? Harry asked, his voice quiet. I know I broke things off, told you we couldn't be together while I was hunting Horcruxes, but I thought. I hoped. Harry, Ginny said softly, I'll always care about you. You were my first love. But things change. People change. I've changed. And you love him now, Harry said, not quite a question. Yes, Ginny confirmed. I do. Harry was silent for a long moment, looking out at the sea. He did save us, he admitted reluctantly. Gave me his wand when it mattered most. And if what you say about Hogwarts is true. It is, Ginny insisted. Then I guess I need to reassess some things. He turned to her, his green eyes serious behind his glasses. I won't pretend to like it, Ginny. Or to suddenly trust him completely. But if you see something in him worth loving, then maybe there's more to Malfoy than I thought. Ginny felt a wave of relief. Thank you, Harry. That means a lot. Just promise me one thing, he said. Be careful. People can change, yes, but old loyalties, old habits, they don't disappear overnight. I know, Ginny assured him. I'm going into this with eyes wide open. Harry nodded, then changed the subject. We won't be staying long. There's still work to do, things we need to find. The hunt for Horcruxes, Ginny said quietly. Harry's eyes widened. How did you? I'm not stupid, Harry, she said with a small smile. I've pieced things together from what you've let slip, what the Order's been saying. You're destroying pieces of you-know-whose soul. Harry looked impressed despite himself. You always were clever. Not clever enough to help, apparently, Ginny said, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from her voice. You, Ron, and Hermione, off saving the world while the rest of us wait. It's not like that, Harry protested. Dumbledore left this task to me. The fewer people who know, the safer everyone is. I know, Ginny sighed. I just hate feeling useless. You're not useless, Harry said firmly. What you did at Hogwarts, keeping the DA going, resisting the Carrows, that matters, Ginny. It gives people hope. They walked back toward the cottage in companionable silence, their conversation having cleared the air somewhat. It wasn't perfect, there was too much history, too much complicated emotion for that, but it was a start. As they approached the cottage, Ginny spotted Draco sitting alone on a large rock, watching the waves. He looked up as they approached, wariness evident in his posture. I'll leave you to it, Harry said, nodding toward Draco. We're not friends, not yet, maybe not ever. But, tell him thanks. For the wand. For helping you. It counts for something. With that, he headed back to the cottage, leaving Ginny to join Draco on his rocky perch. What did Potter want? Draco asked, trying and failing to sound casual. To understand, Ginny said, settling beside him. About us. And does he? Not entirely, Ginny admitted. But he's trying. He said to tell you thanks for the wand. And for helping me at Hogwarts. Surprise flitted across Draco's face. That's unexpectedly gracious of him. Harry can be mature when he wants to be, Ginny said, nudging Draco's shoulder. Unlike some people I could name. That earned her a small smile. Old habits. They sat together watching the waves, Draco's arm around her shoulders, Ginny's head resting against him. For a moment, it felt like they were back on the astronomy tower, before everything had become so complicated. What happens now? Ginny asked finally. Draco sighed, his breath stirring her hair. Potter, Weasley, and Granger are planning something. Something dangerous, from the whispers I've caught. The Horcrux hunt, Ginny confirmed. Pieces of you-know-whose soul, hidden in objects. They're destroying them. That explains a lot, Draco said thoughtfully. The Sword of Gryffindor, my aunt's panic when she saw it. You know about one? Ginny sat up, suddenly alert. Maybe, Draco said slowly. There's a cup, in my aunt's vault at Gringotts. She was obsessed with it, terrified the sword had been used to break into her vault. We need to tell them, Ginny said, starting to rise, but Draco caught her hand. Wait. There's something else we need to discuss first. His expression was serious. When Potter and the others leave, and they will leave, soon, what then? For us? Ginny settled back beside him. What do you mean? I can't go back, Draco said quietly. Not to my family, not to the Dark Lord. I've crossed a line there's no coming back from. But your family. He hesitated. They're not exactly welcoming me with open arms. And I can't blame them. They'll come around, Ginny said with more confidence than she felt. Bill already has, mostly. Charlie too. The twins are reserving judgment but willing to give you a chance. Ron and Harry, well, that will take longer, but Harry's already making an effort. And your parents? Draco pressed. Your father has every reason to hate me, hate my family. Dad is a good man, Ginny said firmly. Judgmental sometimes, yes, but fair. He'll see the change in you, given time. And your mother? I've heard stories about Molly Weasley's protective instincts. Ginny couldn't help but laugh. Those stories are probably all true. But she's also the most loving person I know. Once she sees how happy you make me, she'll come around. Draco didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue further. What about after the war? If we win, if Potter somehow defeats the Dark Lord? Where does that leave me? The son of a Death Eater, with the mark on my arm. The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Ginny had thought about this too, in the long nights at Shell Cottage. We rebuild, she said simply. Together. You atone for the things you did wrong, you build on the things you did right. It won't be easy, but nothing worth having ever is. And if we lose? Draco asked softly. If the Dark Lord wins? Then we run, Ginny said without hesitation. Somewhere he can't find us. America, Australia, wherever. We live the best life we can, for as long as we can. Draco turned to her, wonder in his eyes. Just like that? You'd leave everything, everyone, for me? In a heartbeat, Ginny confirmed. But it won't come to that. Harry will win. I believe that. Your faith in Potter is remarkable, Draco said, though without his usual sarcasm. Not just in Harry, Ginny corrected. In all of us. In what we're fighting for. In the fact that love is stronger than hate, in the end. Very Dumbledore of you, Draco said, but he was smiling slightly. He was right about a lot of things, Ginny shrugged. Including second chances. Draco's smile faded. Do I deserve one? After everything? Ginny took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. Yes, she said firmly. Everyone deserves a second chance. Especially those brave enough to admit they were wrong and try to make it right. He kissed her then, pouring everything he couldn't say into the gesture, his gratitude, his fear, his love, his hope. Ginny responded in kind, her hands sliding into his hair, holding him close. When they broke apart, both breathless, Draco pressed his forehead to hers. Whatever comes next, he said softly, whatever we have to face, as long as you're with me, I can handle it. Always, Ginny promised. The next few days passed in a blur of planning and preparation. Harry, Ron, and Hermione spent hours closeted with Griphook, clearly planning something involving Gringotts. Draco's information about the cup in Bellatrix's vault had caused a flurry of excitement, confirming their suspicions. It's definitely a Horcrux, Harry had said after Draco shared what he knew. It has to be. Meanwhile, Draco had his own conversations with Bill, sharing everything he knew about Death Eater movements, plans, weaknesses. It wasn't full trust, not yet, but it was a beginning. Ron remained coldly distant, speaking to Draco only when absolutely necessary. Ginny tried not to let it bother her. Ron had always been the most stubborn of her brothers, the slowest to adapt to change. "He'll come around," Hermione assured her during a rare moment alone together, the two girls collecting shells on the beach. "He's just protective of you, and he has a lot of history with Malfoy." "I know," Ginny sighed. "I just wish he'd try a little harder." "Give him time," Hermione advised. "This is a lot to process, for all of us. The boy who's tormented us for years, suddenly on our side, in love with you, it's a big adjustment." "Do you trust him?" Ginny asked directly. Hermione considered the question carefully. "I believe he's genuinely changed sides," she said finally. "What he did at Malfoy Manor, refusing to identify Harry, giving him his wand, those aren't the actions of someone still loyal to Voldemort." She paused, picking up a particularly pretty shell. "As for trusting him completely? Not yet. But I'm willing to give him the chance to earn it." Coming from Hermione, who had perhaps suffered the most from Draco's prejudice over the years, this was significant. Ginny hugged her friend impulsively. "Thank you," she said. "That means a lot." Hermione hugged her back, then held her at arm's length, her expression serious. "Just be careful, Ginny. People do change, I believe that, but change is complicated and messy. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt. Are you prepared for that?" "Yes," Ginny said without hesitation. "I know who Draco was. I know who he's trying to become. I don't expect perfection, just effort." Hermione nodded, satisfied. "Then I wish you both happiness, however it comes." The conversation left Ginny feeling lighter, more hopeful about the future. If Hermione could see past her history with Draco, maybe others would too, given time. That night at dinner, something remarkable happened. The conversation had turned to Hogwarts, to what might be happening there in their absence. "Neville's still leading the resistance," Ginny explained. "Last we heard, they were using the Room of Requirement as a base, since the Carrows can't get in." "Smart," Harry nodded. "But they must be running low on supplies by now." "There's a passage," Draco said unexpectedly. "From the Room of Requirement to the Hog's Head. We used it to get Lovegood out. If they've discovered it, they could be getting supplies that way." All eyes turned to him, surprised by his contribution. He shifted uncomfortably under the scrutiny but continued. "Aberforth, the barman, he's sympathetic to your side. He might be helping them." "Aberforth Dumbledore," Harry said thoughtfully. "Albus's brother." "Yes, he helped us too." "Wait," Ron interrupted, staring at Draco with suspicion. "How do you know about this passage? And who's we?" "Draco helped me rescue Luna from the dungeons," Ginny explained. "We hid her in the castle for weeks before finding the passage to get her out." "You?" Ron looked incredulous. "Helped rescue Luna?" Draco met his gaze steadily. "Yes." "Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Draco said simply. "Because what the Carrows were doing was wrong. Because Lovegood didn't deserve what they had planned for her." Ron opened his mouth, clearly ready to argue, but Harry cut him off. "The passage could be useful," he said thoughtfully. "If we need to get into Hogwarts at some point." "You think it might come to that?" Bill asked sharply. Harry exchanged glances with Ron and Hermione. "It might," he said carefully. "We don't know where all the items we're looking for are hidden. One could be at Hogwarts. If it is," Draco said quietly, "I want to help you find it." The offer hung in the air, unexpected and significant. Harry studied Draco for a long moment, then nodded. "If it comes to that," he said, "we could use someone who knows the castle from a different perspective than we do." It wasn't friendship, not even close. But it was acceptance, an acknowledgement that they were on the same side now. Ginny squeezed Draco's hand under the table, feeling a surge of pride. The moment was broken by a silvery lynx Patronus bounding through the wall. It spoke with Kingsley Shacklebolt's deep, measured voice, Hogwarts preparing for siege. Death Eaters gathering. All Order members on alert. The final confrontation approaches. Silence fell as the Patronus faded. Then everyone began speaking at once. "We need to go," Harry said, rising to his feet. "Now. Gringotts first, then Hogwarts." "I'm coming with you," Ginny said immediately. "No," multiple voices responded in unison, Harry, Ron, Draco, and Bill all speaking together. "It's too dangerous," Harry continued. "The Gringotts plan requires specific people, not that," Ginny clarified. "Hogwarts. When you go to Hogwarts, I'm coming. That's my school, my friends fighting there." "Absolutely not," Bill said firmly. "Mum would kill me if I let you walk into a battle." "I'm of age in a few months," Ginny argued. "And I've been fighting this war all year at Hogwarts, while you've all been hiding me away for my safety." "Ginny," Draco said quietly, taking her hand. "Please. Stay here where it's safe. For me." She turned to him, incredulous. "You can't seriously expect me to sit here while everyone I love risks their lives? Including you?" Draco began, then stopped at the look on her face. "No, I suppose I can't. It's not in your nature." "Damn right it's not," she said fiercely. "We're getting ahead of ourselves," Hermione intervened practically. "First, we have to get into Gringotts and find the cup. That could take days to plan properly." "We don't have days," Harry said grimly. "You heard Kingsley. It's happening now, whether we're ready or not." The discussion continued late into the night, plans being made, arguments breaking out and resolving. Through it all, Ginny remained firm. When the time came to go to Hogwarts, she would be there. Eventually, everyone dispersed to try to get some sleep before whatever tomorrow might bring. Draco caught Ginny's arm as she headed toward the stairs. "Walk with me. Just for a minute." They slipped outside, where the night was clear and cold, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. "I'm not going to change my mind," Ginny said immediately. "About Hogwarts." "I know," Draco said with a small smile. "I wouldn't expect anything less from Ginny Weasley." He took both her hands in his expression growing serious. "But there's something I need to say, before whatever comes next." Ginny felt her heart skip a beat at the intensity in his eyes. "What is it?" "I love you," he said simply. "More than I thought possible, more than I deserve. Whatever happens tomorrow, or the next day, or in this war, that won't change." "I love you too," Ginny whispered, throat tight with emotion. "And I want you to know," Draco continued, "that meeting you, loving you, it saved me, Ginny. In every way that matters. You made me believe I could be more than my family's legacy, more than the mark on my arm." "You saved yourself," Ginny corrected gently. "You made the choice to help us, to do what's right despite the cost." "Because you showed me it was possible," Draco insisted. "You saw something in me worth saving when I couldn't see it myself." He took a deep breath, as if gathering courage for what came next. "I know timing is less than ideal. There's a war, your family barely tolerates me, mine would disown me if they haven't already. But when this is over, if we survive." He paused, meeting her eyes directly. "I want a future with you, Ginny. A real future, not just stolen moments and secret meetings." "So do I," she said softly. "Even if it means facing your entire family?" Draco asked. "The press? Everyone who will judge us for being together?" "Especially then," Ginny said with a grin. "I've never backed down from a fight, Malfoy. I'm not about to start now." He laughed, a rare, genuine laugh that transformed his face. "Of course not. Stubborn Gryffindor to the end. Ambitious Slytherin, she countered, stepping closer to him. Always wanting what everyone says you can't have. Only you, he said seriously. You're the only thing I want that I thought I couldn't have. He kissed her then, under the stars, with the sound of waves crashing below. It felt like a promise, a vow, a glimpse of the future they were fighting for. When they broke apart, Draco reached into his pocket and pulled out something small and silver. I've been carrying this since Malfoy Manor, he explained. It was my grandmother's. He held out a delicate silver ring, a small emerald set in an intricate, antique design. It's not an engagement ring, he clarified quickly. Not yet. That would be presumptuous, given everything. But it is a promise. Ginny's heart felt too large for her chest as she looked at the ring, then at Draco's nervous face. A promise of what? She asked softly. That whatever comes next, wherever this war leads us, I'm yours, Draco said simply. For as long as you'll have me. Tears pricked Ginny's eyes as she held out her hand. Forever, then. Draco slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling slightly. It fit perfectly, the emerald catching the starlight. It's beautiful, she whispered. It's goblin-made, Draco explained. One of the few family heirlooms I don't associate with darkness. My grandmother was different from the rest of the Malfoys. She would have approved of you, I think. Ginny looked down at the ring, then back at Draco, her heart full. When this is over, she promised, we'll build something new. Something that isn't defined by our last names or our family's history. I'd like that, Draco said softly. More than anything. They returned to the cottage hand in hand, a newfound determination in both their steps. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together, a Weasley and a Malfoy, defying history, defying expectation, choosing love over ancient hatred. The next morning dawned with a sense of urgency that permeated the cottage. Harry, Ron, and Hermione prepared for their Gringotts mission, using Polyjuice Potion to transform Hermione into a disturbing likeness of Bellatrix Lestrange. It's unnerving, Draco commented, watching the transformation with barely concealed discomfort. You look exactly like her. That's rather the point, Hermione replied in Bellatrix's cold, haughty voice, though the effect was somewhat ruined by her grimace of distaste. As they prepared to leave, Harry pulled Ginny aside. If we're not back by nightfall, he said quietly, contact the Order. Tell them we tried. You'll be back, Ginny said firmly. All of you. Harry nodded, not quite meeting her eyes. About Malfoy, Harry, please don't, no, listen, he interrupted. I need to say this. I still don't understand it, not completely. But I've seen how he looks at you, how you look at him. It's real. Whatever else Malfoy is or was, his feelings for you are genuine. Ginny blinked in surprise. Thank you for saying that. And if he makes you happy, Harry continued, clearly forcing the words out, then I'm glad for you. You deserve to be happy, Ginny. The generosity of this statement, coming from the boy who had once held her heart, who still cared for her deeply, moved Ginny profoundly. She hugged him tightly. Be careful, she whispered. All of you. We will, Harry promised. Then they were gone, disapparating to begin their dangerous mission at Gringotts. The hours that followed were tense with waiting. Bill received periodic updates from the Order, Death Eater movements, preparations at Hogwarts, safe houses being established. Draco provided what information he could about potential strategies, weak points in the Death Eaters organization. My father's fallen out of favor, he explained. But Bellatrix is still in the inner circle, along with Dolohov, the Carrows, and a few others. They're the ones to watch for, the most dangerous, the most fanatical. What about Snape? Bill asked. He's headmaster now. Draco hesitated. Snape is complicated. He was always protective of Slytherin students, even when the Carrows wanted to punish us. And he turned a blind eye to some of the DA's less disruptive activities. You think he might not be fully loyal to you-know-who? Bill pressed. I don't know, Draco admitted. But he's not as straightforward as the others. There's more to him than most people see. The conversation was interrupted by a commotion outside, the crack of apparition, followed by urgent voices. Everyone rushed to the door to find Harry, Ron, and Hermione, soaking wet and accompanied by a large, equally wet dragon that immediately took flight, soaring away over the sea. Was that, Ginny began. Long story, Ron said breathlessly. But we got it. We got the cup. And destroyed the bloody place in the process, Harry added, though he was grinning. They know, though. Voldemort knows what we're doing now. Then he'll be heading for Hogwarts, Hermione said urgently. To check on the others. Others? Draco asked sharply. Harry hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Horcruxes, he explained. Pieces of Voldemort's soul, hidden in objects. We think there's one at Hogwarts. So we're going there, Ron continued. Right now. To find it before he does. I'm coming with you, Ginny said immediately. And me, Draco added, stepping to her side. Harry looked between them, then nodded reluctantly. We can use all the help we can get. But Ginny, your parents, will just have to understand, she finished firmly. This is my fight too, Harry. Within minutes, plans were made. They would apparate to Hogsmeade, then use the passage Draco and Ginny had discovered to enter Hogwarts through the Room of Requirement. Bill would contact the Order, mobilizing everyone to converge on the castle. It's happening, Hermione said softly. The final battle. Yes, Harry agreed, his expression resolute. And it ends tonight, one way or another. As they prepared to leave, Draco pulled Ginny aside one last time. Stay close to me, he said urgently. When we get there, it's going to be chaos, and there are people on both sides who might target you just for being with me. I can handle myself, Ginny reminded him. But yes, we stick together. He nodded, squeezing her hand where his grandmother's ring now rested. Whatever happens, he said quietly, know that choosing you was the best decision I ever made. And choosing you, Ginny replied, was mine. With that, they joined the others, linked hands, and disapparated toward Hogsmeade, toward Hogwarts, toward the final confrontation that would determine all their fates. The Battle of Hogwarts unfolded in chaos and blood. From the moment they arrived in Hogsmeade, triggering caterwauling charms and barely escaping Death Eaters, to their entrance into the castle through the Room of Requirement, events moved with dizzying speed. The room was filled with students when they arrived, members of Dumbledore's army, hiding from the Carrows, waiting for the moment to fight back. Neville greeted them with a scarred face but triumphant grin. I knew you'd come, he exclaimed, embracing Harry, then Ginny. He hesitated at the sight of Draco, but extended a hand. Glad you made it, Malfoy. Wasn't sure you would. I made a promise, Draco replied, shaking Neville's hand. The simple gesture, a Longbottom and a Malfoy, shaking hands as allies, felt monumental. Ginny noticed the shock rippling through the room as people registered Draco's presence among them. Whispers spread, confused and suspicious. Draco's with us now, she said loudly, taking his hand. He's been helping the DA for months, and he's here to fight alongside us. The declaration was met with mixed reactions, some nods of acceptance from those who'd known about his help with Luna, skeptical looks from others. Draco stood tall under their scrutiny, his face composed though his hand tightened around Ginny's. There was no time for further explanations. Harry needed to find the lost diadem of Ravenclaw, the suspected Horcrux, while the castle prepared for battle. Students were evacuated, defensive positions established, protective enchantments strengthened. Ginny found herself swept up in the preparations, separated from Draco as they were assigned to different tasks. She caught glimpses of him across crowded rooms, coordinating with members of the Order, providing intelligence on Death Eater tactics, preparing defensive potions with Slughorn. Then came the moment she'd been dreading. Her entire family arrived through the passageway from the Hog's Head. Her parents, Fred, George, Percy, returned to the fold at last, even Charlie from Romania. Their reunion was emotional but brief, overshadowed by the imminent battle. "You should be at home," her mother exclaimed upon seeing her. "You're underage." "I'm fighting," Ginny said firmly. "I've been fighting all year at Hogwarts. I'm not stopping now." Before the argument could escalate, a commotion nearby drew their attention. Arthur Weasley had spotted Draco and was advancing on him, wand half-raised, expression thunderous. "What is he doing here?" Arthur demanded. "A Malfoy? Is this some kind of trap?" Ginny rushed forward, placing herself between her father and Draco. "Dad, no. He's on our side now. He's been helping us for months." "It's true, Arthur," Remus Lupin confirmed, stepping forward. Kingsley verified his intelligence. "He's turned against Voldemort." Arthur looked between them, suspicion warring with confusion. Why? Why would Lucius Malfoy's son switch sides? "Because it was the right thing to do," Draco said quietly. "Because I've seen what the Dark Lord really is, what he does to his followers, to everyone. And because..." He glanced at Ginny, then back to Arthur, "because I love your daughter." The statement landed like a bombshell. Molly gasped, Fred and George exchanged identical looks of shock, and Arthur's face went completely blank with surprise. "You what?" he finally managed. "It's true, Dad," Ginny said, moving to stand beside Draco, taking his hand openly. "Draco and I are together. He helped me escape Hogwarts when the Carrows were hunting me, he rescued Luna from the dungeons, he's risked everything to help us." "This is insane," Arthur muttered. "Completely insane. A Weasley and a Malfoy?" "Yes," Ginny said simply. "A Weasley and a Malfoy. The world is changing, Dad. Old rivalries don't matter anymore. What matters is who's willing to stand against the darkness. And Draco is." Before Arthur could respond, Voldemort's magically amplified voice echoed throughout the castle, demanding Harry Potter be turned over, giving them 1 hour to comply. "We'll discuss this later," Arthur said grimly. "If there is a later." "There will be," Ginny promised, squeezing Draco's hand. "We'll make sure of it." As the castle erupted into frenzied final preparations, Ginny found a moment alone with her mother, who had been uncharacteristically silent during the confrontation. "Mum," she began uncertainly. "About Draco, not now, Ginny," Molly said, her voice strained. "We're about to fight for our lives. Your relationship with the Malfoy boy will have to wait. But I need you to understand, I understand that you believe he's changed," Molly interrupted. "And for your sake, I hope that's true. But right now, all that matters is surviving this night." She embraced Ginny fiercely, then held her at arm's length. "Be careful. Stay with your brothers if you can. And..." She hesitated, "Tell the Malfoy boy the same." It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a beginning. Ginny hugged her mother again, then hurried to find Draco among the defenders taking position. She found him on the 3rd floor, helping to establish defensive barriers with Professor Flitwick. He looked up as she approached, relief washing over his features. "Your family?" he asked simply. "Still processing," Ginny replied. "But we have more immediate concerns." Around them, the castle was transforming into a fortress, statues animated to defend the walls, protective charms layered over entrances, strategic positions established for dueling. "Stay with me," Draco said as they took position near a large window overlooking the grounds. "When it starts, I know," Ginny nodded. "We watch each other's backs." The hour passed too quickly. Then, with an earth-shaking boom, the attack began. Death Eaters assaulted the castle's protective enchantments, giants hammered at the walls, acromantulas swarmed the grounds. Ginny and Draco fought side by side as the battle engulfed them. Jets of light flew in all directions, stunning spells, impediment jinxes, killing curses. Draco proved himself a formidable duelist, his spellwork precise and powerful, while Ginny fought with the fierce determination that characterized everything she did. They moved through the castle as the battle shifted, fighting alongside different allies, Neville and Luna on the grand staircase, Fred and George in the east corridor, Lupin and Tonks in the courtyard. Everywhere they went, the sight of Draco Malfoy fighting alongside the defenders caused doubletakes and confusion, but in the chaos of battle, questions could wait. The moment of truth came in the Great Hall. Draco and Ginny had been separated during a skirmish. Ginny pulled toward the center of the hall with her family while Draco fought near the entrance. Then, through a blasted open door, Lucius and Narcissa Malfoy entered, searching frantically through the melee. Draco. Narcissa's voice cut through the chaos. Draco, where are you? Draco froze, his wand still raised against a Death Eater he'd been dueling. His parents spotted him, relief washing over their faces. Draco, come. Lucius commanded. The Dark Lord will forgive your absence if you return now. The fighting around them seemed to pause as everyone watched this family drama unfold. Ginny held her breath, her heart hammering against her ribs. Draco looked from his parents to Ginny, then back again. In his face, she could see the weight of his choice, family versus future, the path laid out for him versus the one he had chosen for himself. No, he said finally, his voice clear and carrying across the hall. I won't come. I've chosen my side. Don't be foolish. Lucius hissed. They'll kill you. Then I die fighting for what's right, Draco replied. Something you never taught me, father. Narcissa stepped forward, her aristocratic features twisted with fear. Draco, please. You're our son, our only child. We can protect you, like you protected me when the Dark Lord marked me. Draco asked bitterly. When he moved into our home, when he used me to punish you? Lucius's face hardened. If you stay with them, you are no son of mine. Lucius. Narcissa gasped, but he ignored her. Choose now, Draco, Lucius demanded. Your family or these? He gestured contemptuously at the defenders around them, these blood traitors and muggle lovers. Draco straightened his spine, lowering his wand slightly but keeping it ready. I've already chosen, he said, moving deliberately toward Ginny. I choose her. I choose a future without hatred and fear. I choose the side that doesn't torture children or murder families. He reached Ginny, taking her hand openly before turning back to his stunned parents. I choose love over hate. Something the Malfoy family forgot generations ago. Narcissa's eyes dropped to their joined hands, widening as she recognized Ginny. A Weasley, she whispered, sounding genuinely shocked. You've chosen a Weasley over your own blood? I've chosen Ginny, Draco corrected. Her name doesn't matter. Her heart does. The naked emotion in his voice seemed to affect his mother. Her expression softened slightly, something like understanding flickering in her eyes. Then you truly are lost to us, Lucius spat, raising his wand. No, Lucius. Narcissa cried, grabbing his arm. Not our son. The moment shattered as the battle resumed around them, a fresh wave of Death Eaters pouring into the hall. Draco pulled Ginny behind an overturned table as spells flew overhead. Are you okay? He asked urgently, searching her face. Shouldn't I be asking you that? Ginny replied. Your father just disowned you. He did that a long time ago, Draco said grimly. He just didn't know it yet. They rejoined the fight, moving in perfect synchronization, covering each other's blind spots, fighting as if they'd trained together for years. Around them, the battle raged with increasing ferocity, Death Eaters and defenders alike falling to spells, the castle itself taking damage from giant-hurled boulders and magical explosions. Then came the moment that would haunt Ginny's nightmares. She and Draco were fighting back-to-back near the entrance to the Great Hall when Fred and Percy appeared, dueling hooded Death Eaters. "Hello, Minister!" Percy was shouting, jinxing a man Ginny recognized as Pious Thickness. "Did I mention I'm resigning?" Fred laughed, his face alight with battle exhilaration. "You're actually joking, Perce." "I don't think I've heard you joke since," the air exploded. Ginny was blown backward, Draco's arms wrapping around her protectively as they both crashed into a wall. When she regained her senses, her ears ringing painfully, she saw the corridor wall had been blown apart, rubble everywhere. And beneath it, still and silent, lay Fred. "No!" The scream tore from her throat as she scrambled toward her brother, Draco right behind her. Percy was already there, shaking Fred, begging him to wake up. But Fred's eyes stared sightlessly upward, his last laugh still etched on his face. "Fred," Ginny sobbed, dropping to her knees beside him. "No, Fred, please, no." Draco stood guard over them, deflecting curses as the battle continued around them, his face grim with shared pain. When Ron arrived, then her parents, the collective grief was overwhelming. There was no time to properly mourn. The battle continued, more vicious than before, driven by grief and rage and desperation. Ginny fought mechanically, tears blurring her vision, Draco never leaving her side. When Voldemort called a temporary ceasefire, demanding Harry's surrender, the respite was filled with the grim task of collecting the dead. Fred was carried to the Great Hall, laid alongside Lupin, Tonks, and dozens of others who had fallen defending Hogwarts. Ginny stood beside her family, numb with grief, as they surrounded Fred's body. Draco hung back, understanding this was a moment for family, until Arthur Weasley looked up and beckoned him forward. "You fought beside my children," Arthur said quietly. "You protected my daughter. That makes you part of this." The simple acknowledgement meant more than flowery declarations ever could. Draco stepped forward, taking a place beside Ginny, offering silent support as the Weasleys mourned their fallen son and brother. When news came that Harry had gone into the Forbidden Forest to confront Voldemort alone, despair threatened to overwhelm them all. Then, the most terrible moment, Voldemort's announcement that Harry Potter was dead, his body carried by a weeping Hagrid. "No," Ginny whispered, her heart breaking anew. "Not Harry too." Draco's arm tightened around her waist, keeping her upright when her knees threatened to buckle. "It's not over," he murmured. "Not yet." He was right. Even as Voldemort demanded their surrender, even as Neville stepped forward to defy him, even as chaos erupted once more, the battle was not over. Harry, impossibly, was alive, fighting, dueling Voldemort himself as the battle raged around them. And then, suddenly, impossibly, it was over. Voldemort fell, killed by his own rebounding curse, and silence descended on the Great Hall. In the stunned aftermath, as realization of their victory slowly spread, Draco and Ginny clung to each other, bloodied, exhausted, but alive. Around them, cheers began to rise, survivors embracing, the dead being mourned, the wounded tended. "We made it," Ginny whispered, looking up at Draco's dirt-streaked face. "We survived." "Yes," he agreed, pressing his forehead to hers. "Now comes the hard part." "What's that?" "Learning to live in a world without him," Draco said softly. "Without the war, without the hate. Building something new. Together," Ginny said, not a question but a promise. "Together," Draco confirmed, the silver ring on her finger catching the morning light as it streamed through the broken windows of Hogwarts. Epilogue. 2 years later, Platform 9 3/4 bustled with activity, steam billowing from the scarlet engine of the Hogwarts Express as students and parents crowded the platform for the start of term. Ginny Weasley Malfoy stood beside her husband, watching the organized chaos with a mixture of nostalgia and amusement. "Reminds me of my first day," she commented. "Except less terrifying." Draco smiled, the expression coming more naturally to him these days. "Speak for yourself." "I find large gatherings of Weasleys extremely terrifying." As if to prove his point, the extended Weasley clan approached, Arthur and Molly leading the way, followed by Bill and Fleur with young Victoire, Percy and Audrey, George and Angelina, and Ron and Hermione bringing up the rear. "Ready for this?" Ginny asked, squeezing Draco's hand. "As I'll ever be," he replied, straightening his shoulders. The reconciliation with Ginny's family had been slow, painful at times, but steady. Arthur had been the first to truly accept him, recognizing the genuine change in Draco after watching him fight alongside them at Hogwarts. Molly had taken longer, but Draco's obvious devotion to Ginny had eventually won her over. Ron remained the most resistant, though even he had progressed from open hostility to grudging tolerance, especially after Hermione's persistent advocacy for giving Draco a second chance. Their wedding the previous summer had been a small affair at the rebuilt Shell Cottage, attended by the Weasleys, a few close friends, and, to everyone's surprise, Narcissa Malfoy, who had separated from Lucius and tentatively reached out to her son a year after the battle. "There's my favorite brother-in-law," George called as they approached, clapping Draco on the shoulder with exaggerated enthusiasm. "Still the palest Weasley in history." "I'm a Malfoy Weasley, thank you," Draco corrected with mock indignation. "The hyphen is very important." "And he's your only brother-in-law, George," Ginny pointed out, hugging her brother. "Details, details," George waved dismissively. The family gathered together, exchanging greetings and news. Teddy Lupin, now a rambunctious toddler with ever-changing hair color, ran circles around them all, supervised by his grandmother Andromeda and his godfather Harry, who nodded cordially to Draco and Ginny. Harry's relationship with them had evolved into something resembling friendship, albeit with occasional awkward moments. He had been best man at Ron and Hermione's wedding the previous month, while Ginny had served as maid of honor. Draco, still finding his place in this new world, had attended as Ginny's husband but had kept a respectful distance from the proceedings. "All set for your first term teaching?" Arthur asked Ginny proudly. She nodded, excitement bubbling up. "The potions classroom is fully stocked, lessons planned through Christmas." Slughorn left excellent notes. After completing her NEWTS with distinction, Ginny had surprised everyone by developing a passion for potions, apprenticing under Slughorn before taking over upon his second retirement. Draco, meanwhile, had established a successful business developing improved medical potions, working closely with St. Mungos to create treatments for curse damage and magical injuries. Their life together wasn't perfect, both still carried scars from the war, both still faced whispers and judgment from those who couldn't accept a Weasley and a Malfoy together. But they had built something beautiful from the ashes of conflict, a relationship founded on mutual respect, shared growth, and genuine love. "You'll visit for the first Hogsmeade weekend?" Ginny asked Draco as the train whistle sounded, warning of imminent departure. "Try to keep me away," he promised, pulling her close. "Though I still think you should have taken the defense position instead. You're much more intimidating than potions professors are supposed to be." Ginny laughed. "Says the man who was terrified of Snape." "Precisely my point," Draco grinned. He kissed her goodbye, ignoring the theatrical gagging noises George made nearby. "I love you, Professor Weasley Malfoy." "I love you too," Ginny replied, touching the emerald ring that now resided alongside her wedding band. "Even if you are a bit of a prat sometimes." "You're prat," Draco corrected. "Always." As Ginny boarded the train to begin her new adventure teaching at Hogwarts, she looked back at her unlikely family gathered on the platform, the Weasleys who had learned to accept her choice, the husband who had defied everything he was raised to believe for love, the friends who had stood by them through it all. A forbidden romance that had blossomed in the darkest of times, proving that love truly could conquer even the most entrenched hatred. A Weasley and a Malfoy, rewriting history with every day they chose each other. And in the end, wasn't that the greatest magic of all? The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.